Hey guys, tonight, we slip into sandals worn 2,000 years ago, pushing our way through a chattering Roman crowd, just as dawn starts brushing the sky with pale gold. You're heading to a place where blood is sport, roars are ritual, and emperors, well, they sit front row like they own the universe, which honestly, they kind of do. The Colosseum, or the Flavian Amphitheater, if you want to impress a historian, looms ahead. It's massive. No, seriously, imagine a football stadium swallowed by a wedding cake made of weathered limestone. Arched entrances yawn open, and it smells like dust, sweat, and a little bit of burnt meat already. You clutch your toga nudge past a guy selling honeyed almonds and try not to look like you've never been here before. But you have. Everyone comes to the games, even kids, even slaves. It's practically Rome's favorite group therapy. Oh, and you probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, drop your location and the time where you are down in the comments. It's always fun seeing how far this little bedtime caravan travels. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're up early because the Colosseum opens at sunrise and the hardcore fans line up before that. No digital tickets here. Your entry depends on your toga, your sandals, and your social class. The elite have polished bronze tablets with engraved seat assignments. You're somewhere above nosebleed. You're not rich, but you're not shoveling sewer filth either. Middle class. You've got status, but not cushions. As you near the outer wall, you tilt your head back, trying to see the top. Good luck. It's 12 to 15 stories high, with staggered levels of arches and thousands of people swarming through them like ants in organized chaos. Over 50,000 citizens could cram inside, and right now it feels like they're all arriving at once. You pass through one of the 80 numbered entrances. The stone is cold to the touch, still holding the chill of night, and above you carved graffiti from decades ago peeks through the grime names, crude stick gladiators, and maybe something about someone's mom. You smirk. A soldier nods at your wrist, token a color-coded tessera, and waves you into the crowd flow. No metal detectors, but the Roman guards are definitely giving the side-eye to a guy with a suspiciously pointy walking stick. The corridor you enter is dark and echoey. Stone vaults swallow sound, bouncing voices and footsteps into a kind of pre-battle murmur. It's weirdly intimate. The floor's packed dirt, the walls sweat salt, and then boom. Light, noise, heat. You emerge into the main amphitheater, and your breath actually catches. It's vast. The oval arena stretches out in front of you, covered in clean sand, the color of sun-baked flour. Beneath it, a labyrinth of trapdoors, lifts, and tunnels known as the hypogum, where all the monsters and miracles are hiding, waiting their cue. The seats rise in steep tiers like the world's most judgmental mountain. Senators and nobles get the lower levels, priests and equestrians slightly above them. The rest merchants, freedmen, tourists, and you are funneled into higher levels sometimes with an awning shade if the gods are merciful. Women and the poorest citizens top row. Bring binoculars. Oh wait, those haven't been invented. You climb more. Your thighs scream, but the view's actually pretty good. You can see the imperial box across the way, gilded, curtained, and currently empty. The emperor is fashionably late. Of course, beside you, two older men are arguing over today's matches. One swears there's a new Egyptian beast tamer performing. The other insists it's a publicity stunt, and the lions are half blind. They're eating olives out of a paper cone and don't offer you any. Now that you're seated, You take a breath and take it all in. The air smells like sweat, citrus wine, and something faintly coppery. Spoiler, it's blood, or at least the memory of it. The arena's marble glints in the light, and the sun is already starting to roast your scalp. You pull your hood up. Should have paid for a hat. The crowd around you is a symphony of humanity. Kids selling trinkets, mothers hushing babies, veterans with missing fingers muttering about how the old gladiators fought better. Someone's trying to teach their goat to sit. The goat is ignoring them, and this is just the pre-show. Historians still argue whether these early morning arrivals were required by law or simply a tradition encouraged by civic pride and the promise of violence. Whatever the case, people show up religiously, and some even sleep outside the arena to get better seats. Not that the stone is particularly comfy. There's not a cushion in sight unless you're VIP. Suddenly a trumpet blasts. Not a jazzy one, a brassy Roman war horn kind of thing that says we're about to get serious. A shiver runs through the stands. This is it. A few slaves scurry into the arena with rakes and cloths smoothing the sand. You notice the texture, coarse reddish, meant to soak up what's coming. One fringe theory says the sand was sometimes dyed darker to make the blood less visible. Others say the opposite, Romans wanted to see it all. Dramatic effect, you know. There's a slight commotion near the entry arch. You crane your neck along with half the crowd. But no, not yet. Just a herald delivering scrolls to the organizers. You can't quite read what's written, but the giant painted billboards, Acta Diurna, list the names of today's fighters. You trace a few flamma spiculus veris, some real legends if you believe the gossip. One apparently killed a bear with a broken torch. Or maybe that was exaggerated. Romans do love a good rumor. The heat intensifies. You shift on your stone bench elbow, someone accidentally apologize in bad Latin, and sip from your watered wine flask. The guy next to you is drawing something in the dust with his sandal. A sword, or maybe a fish. Either way, it's calming. This is the moment before the chaos. The breath before the shout. You feel the collective heartbeat of 50,000 humans pulsing towards something primal. You're here. You're in it. You are now part of the most iconic blood sport in human history. And it hasn't even started yet. You shift again on the sun-warmed stone elbow, balanced on your knee, as your eyes trace the great bowl of humanity around you. It's like sitting inside a living beast, one that mutters, scratches, laughs, and sweats in time with your own pulse. The arena isn't just a place, it's a mood. And right now, everyone's riding the edge of anticipation. You glance to your left and spot a vendor struggling up the steps with a basket slung over his shoulder, shouting something about roasted chickpeas still warm. He's trailed by a boy carrying a clay jug, sloshing with watered wine, the ancient version of soda and peanuts. You flick him a coin, and the wine's sour but cold. Bless. Now you've got time to kill before the good stuff begins. But killing time in ancient Rome is an art. You're part of a mass slowly growing louder and rowdier. The elite, those smug statues in fine linen, have long since taken their spots on the velvet-draped marble seats closest to the arena. They recline as if watching death were a massage. You, on the other hand, perch like a bird with back pain. Welcome to the plebeian experience. Suddenly, a scuffle breaks out 2 rows behind you. It's not serious, just a couple of lads jostling over who sat where first. A guard appears out of nowhere, whacks them both lightly with a stick, and they settle like told-off schoolboys. You smile. Classic. Around you, the chatter builds. Who's fighting? Who's favored? Someone claims they saw one of the retiarii, those gladiators with nets and tridents, limping into the barracks last night. Someone else scoffs and says that was just a drunk fishmonger. Ah, Rome, where gossip and gladiators go hand in hand. Then a sudden hush. It's like a collective inhalation. You follow the shifting attention of the crowd toward the main entrance of the arena, the Porta Triumphalis, and there it is, the imperial standard fluttering golden eagles glinting in the early light. The emperor is arriving. Trumpets wail again, sharper this time, and soldiers form a corridor through the middle of the arena floor, their red cloaks blazing like someone spilled Mars across the sand. You stand, as do all others, craning to catch a glimpse of the most powerful man in the known world. And then he appears, not walking, not riding a war horse, but carried, of course, perched in a lavish litter borne by 8 burly attendants like some divine prize on its way to an altar. The emperor, your emperor, draped in purple so rich it probably costs more than your entire neighborhood. He raises a hand like he's blessing the air itself, and the crowd loses its mind, shouting his name, tossing flowers, some just crying from the sheer proximity to power. You don't cry, but you do clap loud enough to seem appropriately loyal. It's wise not to look bored when a living god makes eye contact with the crowd. He takes his seat in the pulvinar, the imperial box, shaded by an awning and guarded by statues of Roman deities. From here, he'll decide who lives and who dies today, mostly as a flex, partly as PR. That thumb you've heard about, not always used. Sometimes it's a nod, sometimes a glance. Historians still argue whether the whole thumbs down to die thing was even accurate or just a Renaissance myth. But hey, we love drama. Once the emperor settles, the mood shifts again. Now it's real, now it's showtime. And right on cue, the grand parade begins. A fanfare blasts brassy and off-key like a brass section with stage fright, and the gates at either end of the arena creak open. From one end march the gladiators, from the other, the animal tamers and beast handlers. Behind them, a literal parade of animals, leashed leopards, pacing lions, a bear that looks like it's done with everyone's nonsense, and 2 nervous camels that probably took a wrong turn in the desert 3 months ago. The crowd roars, and you lean forward, because this part is pure theater. The gladiators wear their training gear, not the flashy armor they'll fight in. This is their introduction. You eye them one by one, tall, short, scarred, baby-faced, tattooed, missing an ear, practically glowing with confidence, or visibly sweating through bravado. Some raise their arms, saluting the crowd. Some don't bother. It's all part of the image. A herald with lungs like a war drum shouts their names, their fighting styles, their records. You cheer loudest for one of the murmillos, the heavy infantry types with broad helmets and short swords. Something about the way he doesn't blink when a monkey on a leash runs past. The most famous among them, though you recognize from gossip and market graffiti, Varus, the crowd favorite. Tall, handsome, in a probably broke 4 noses last week way. You see him smirk at a woman in the senator's box, and she fans herself dramatically. Smooth. At this point, you're starting to feel it. That collective breathlessness. The feeling that something ancient, sacred, and deeply unhinged is about to happen. Then the oath, one of the oldest traditions. The gladiators form a rough semicircle and raise their hands. One by one, they recite in unison the sacred phrase, Ave Imperator morituri te salutant. Hail Emperor, those who are about to die salute you. Well, supposedly. Historians still argue whether that was a standard gladiator chant or just a one-off during a specific naval reenactment. But you're not thinking that right now. You're staring at a line of men who may not see the sunset. You feel the weight of the moment, the irony, the bizarre honor of it. And then, they're gone. ushered back out through the gates for final prep, leaving the sand marked by their footprints and some animal droppings. A group of slaves rushes in to clean up, dragging rakes and wheelbarrows like janitors after a wild parade. The crowd breaks into smaller conversations again, and you lean back slightly. Your legs have pins and needles. A boy in front of you keeps trying to wave at the leopards. You gently move your wine flask out of swatting range. And just as you're thinking it might be a good time for a bathroom break, too late. A trumpet screams. The first match is about to begin. You lean forward again, heart-jumping, breath held. Because now it's no longer ceremony. Now the sand gets hungry. The trumpet's echo hasn't even faded before the crowd begins to ripple like wind over wheat, every head turning toward the same gate where the first pair of gladiators will emerge. You sit upright, legs buzzing from sitting so long on unforgiving stone. There's no room for shifting now. All focus turns to the arena. Out they come. On the left, the retiarius, the net fighter. He's light, wiry, wearing almost no armor except for a padded sleeve on his left arm and a metal guard over one shoulder. In one hand, he grips a trident with wicked points, and in the other, a weighted net that drags a little in the sand. His hair's tied back, and you can see his ribs when he breathes in. He looks young, too young, maybe, but calm. Too calm, that's either confidence or very real denial. On the right, the Secutor, his traditional opponent. A contrast in every way. Heavy armor, a smooth, domed helmet with tiny eye holes designed specifically to avoid net entanglement. His large rectangular shield, the scutum, practically dwarfs the short gladius sword in his right hand. You can already feel the weight of his steps in your seat. He's stomping like thunder. A murmur rolls through the stands. This is a classic matchup: speed versus strength, fish versus fisherman. The retiarius is often nicknamed the fisherman, which is slightly less cool when you remember how many fishermen drown. They circle each other. The sand beneath their feet whispers with each step. The crowd goes quiet, eerily so, until someone sneezes and gets glared at by an entire row of retirees. Then the retiarius moves. He darts to the side net, swinging in a calculated arc. The Secutor raises his shield, absorbing the movement, trying not to blink in the cramped visibility of his helmet. You can almost hear his breath, fast, echoing in metal, measured but rising. The net flies. It sails wide, too wide. The crowd groans. A wasted throw, no weight. It was a feint. The retiarius closes in, jabbing the trident low, forcing the Secutor to pivot awkwardly. Dust kicks up. You can't tell if that grunt was pain or exertion. Mainstream historical fact: gladiators weren't just brutes. They were highly trained professionals. The retiarius was known for using the entire arena like a chessboard, leveraging agility and space. They trained daily, sometimes more than Roman soldiers. Food was rich in carbs, giving them an insulating fat layer, not for vanity, but to protect organs from superficial wounds. The Secutor lunges, suddenly shield first, smashing the smaller man backward. The retiarius stumbles but rolls his net, forgotten now. He stabs upward, misses. Trident scrapes shield. A second later, he's almost impaled on the gladius but jerks away in time. The audience is enthralled. You're on the edge of your seat. Somewhere behind you, someone drops a jug, and it shatters like thunder. No one flinches. They're locked again, closer now. You can see sweat dripping down the Secutor's leg, leaving streaks on the sand. The retiarius has blood on his cheek cut, or just a smear from an earlier fighter's mistake. They break apart, both panting, circling again. The Secutor keeps pressing. It's like watching a boulder chase a fox. The fox isn't dumb, but there's only so long you can dance. And then the twist. The retiarius trips. It looks accidental. Maybe it is. He hits the sand hard arm thrown up instinctively. The secutor moves in with the finality of an executioner. You can hear people shouting now. Some chant, "Yugula, Yugula, kill him." Others scream, "Mita, let him go." The shouts create a war of syllables in the heat. It rises, conflicts, overlaps. And suddenly it's not just two men fighting, it's 50,000. The secutor pauses, gladius raised. His helmet turns just slightly toward the imperial box. This is the moment. The emperor leans forward, his fingers twitch. You squint, trying to see. Is that a thumbs down, a thumbs up, a waggle? You can't tell. Historians still debate what the exact signal was. Contrary to popular belief, it might have been the closed fist for death and open palm for mercy. Or maybe it changed, depending on the emperor's mood and how much wine he'd had. Honestly, the signal might have been whatever gets the loudest cheer. The crowd reacts before the emperor even finishes. Mercy. There's a long collective sigh. Relief, disappointment, both. The secutor lowers his blade. The retiarius drops his trident and raises one hand, grateful or pretending to be. He's escorted out quickly, trailed by a medical slave. He'll live. For now. You exhale. That was the first match. Around you, bets are being settled with grumbles or smugness. A man 2 rows down owes someone a goose. You're not sure if that's slang or literal. Either way, a deal's a deal. And now the next surprise. Another gate opens, and this time it's not men. It's ostriches, 3 of them. They burst onto the sand like feathered meteors, long legs flailing. The crowd laughs. This is the comedic bit. A warm-up between bloodier fights. But the laugh chokes a little when you see the next person enter a venator, an animal hunter lightly armored and holding a spear tipped with barbs. He's smiling. This part is less about fairness, more about showing off agility and control. Ostriches are fast, but they're also very confused about why they're here. He dodges, he taunts. He chases one in a loop around a fake rock. You and the entire upper tier are giggling, not sure if this is cruelty or slapstick. Probably both. And just as the third ostrich makes a break for it, zip, the spear flashes. It's down. Instant. The crowd roars. You wince. Not because it's gory, it wasn't, but because now things shift again. The light part is over. The blood's coming back. A new match is announced. 2 Thracians enter, curved swords, small shields, tall greaves. They clash immediately, quick and wild like cats in armor. The air smells like metal and heat. One slices low, the other blocks and counters. You don't even blink. Somewhere a flute begins to play softly, oddly out of place. You wonder if the player is blind or just that confident? This is your morning now. You've seen mercy, laughter, death barely missed, birds outrun by spears, and you still haven't had lunch. And it's only the beginning. You barely have time to catch your breath. The Thracians are still circling each other, blades flashing when you spot another procession forming near one of the gates. Not more gladiators. Something bigger, hairier. A wave of anticipation moves through the crowd, and suddenly everyone around you is standing up, even that cranky guy who's been muttering about taxes and sore knees all morning. You follow their gaze to the far arch, and then you see it. A lion. Huge. Golden. Its mane bristles like it's made of spun bronze, and its yellow eyes are fixed dead ahead. A handler walks behind it, holding a long pole tipped with a flaming torch. Not to guide the beast, more to remind it who's boss. Except, the lion doesn't seem impressed. This, you realize, is one of the venations the beast hunts. A favorite part of the Roman games, where trained animal fighters, or venatores, faced down wild creatures captured from across the empire. lions from Numidia, elephants from Africa, even crocodiles, though those were more of a splash zone hazard. Today's show seems ambitious. The gate creaks again. A bear lumbers into view. Not a little one either. A hulking brute of muscle and fur with a muzzle that's definitely seen things. The crowd loves it. Some start chanting Ursus Ursus like it's a sports team. Then the Venator enters. He's tall, shirtless, oiled skin gleaming in the sun, armed with a spear and a dagger at his belt. His helmet's crested for show more than defense. He salutes the Emperor, who waves a dismissive hand like he's ordering more grapes. And then it begins. The bear charges first, snorting, roaring, not bothering with ceremony. The hunter sidesteps, jabs. Miss! The lion growls, pacing in slow, deliberate arcs. For now, it's not interested in joining the mess. Smart cat. You watch the Venator spin, duck dive. He's not just fighting, he's performing. The bear swipes, he ducks. The lion leaps, he rolls, barely avoiding claws that slice the air with audible menace. Mainstream fact, these shows weren't always fights to the death. Sometimes the animals were drugged or exhausted beforehand to ensure a more manageable performance, but not today. These beasts look wide awake. The bear takes a spear to the shoulder. Blood sprays in a thick arc. Someone in the front row gets hit and shrieks, half in shock, half in delight. You lean forward. The lion finally provoked charges, but not at the Venator, at the bear. Now this is new. They clash, fangs, claws, fury. The crowd's gone full chaos. You hear coins clatter as bets are recalculated mid-roar. Historians still argue whether these animal-on-animal matches were staged or spontaneous. Judging by the guards creeping closer with nets, you're thinking this one's gone a little off script. The bear pins the lion, roaring loud enough to rattle your ribs. The Venator, sensing opportunity, hurls a second spear into the melee. It thuds deep into the bear's flank. The lion wriggles free, bleeding but alive, and bolts toward a fake boulder. The bear stumbles, collapses, breath heaving. It snarls one last time and goes still. The crowd erupts. Some cheer for the Venator. Others boo the lion for retreating. You're not sure what to feel. It's part theater, part nature documentary, part nightmare. And yet, there's something undeniably hypnotic about it. Fringe tidbit. Some animal trainers supposedly used mild narcotics mixed into feed to dull a beast's reflexes before a show. Others whispered about curses or arena ghosts that caused animals to turn on their handlers at the worst moments. Superstition ran deep here, especially when facing creatures the average Roman only saw in mosaic tiles. The lions, rounded up with nets and poles, dragged reluctantly back toward the gate. It snarls the whole way, and you're glad you're 10 rows up. Now the slaves rush in. Some sweep. Others carry buckets of sawdust. You've noticed the smell change, less animal, more iron, and the sand has new color streaks in it. They rake it smooth again, almost lovingly. You wonder if they dream of doing literally anything else. Next comes a different kind of spectacle. From the far tunnel, a small group of men are herded out, criminals, unarmed. Some in rags, some stripped almost bare. No armor, no ceremony, just raw fear and shaking knees. Their crime could be theft, could be desertion, could be politics. Doesn't matter now. They're the condemned. You've heard of this segment. It's sometimes called the damnatio ad bestias, condemnation to the beasts. But today's theme is even darker. They're going to reenact a myth. Yes, really. This one's Prometheus, the man who defied the gods by giving fire to mankind. According to legend, he was chained to a rock where an eagle ate his liver every day, and it grew back. Every day. Guess who's playing Prometheus? One of the criminals is shackled to a fake boulder in the middle of the arena. You can already hear people snickering. It's absurd, and yet everyone's watching. A door opens. Out comes the eagle. Not an eagle. It's a vulture. A big, ugly one with balding feathers and a beak that looks like it's filed taxes. It flutters toward the bound man, pecks, pauses, pecks again. The man screams. Not for show. And here's the horrible part, people are laughing. Not everyone, but enough. It's cruel comedy wrapped in divine punishment, sold as theater. A young woman behind you whispers, "He stole bread." You don't know if that's true, but it sits in your chest like lead anyway. The vulture is finally coaxed away. The criminal is dragged off unconscious, or worse, you can't tell. The others are ushered out for the next myth. Icarus, perhaps. There's a pile of fake wings by the props cart. You don't ask. Historians still argue whether the condemned had any hope of survival. Some claim a particularly brave performance could sway the crowd or even the emperor. Others believe once you were in this part of the program, mercy was off the table. The whole point was to make a point. You rub your palms together, trying to process what you've just seen. The sun's climbed higher. The crowd's louder, sweatier, drunker. You're hungry, slightly nauseous, and hyper-aware that you've now witnessed something very few in the modern world ever could. This is Rome's entertainment. And the next act is already waiting in the wings. You shift your weight again, wincing, as your back complains against the hard stone. It's only mid-morning, but the Colosseum feels like it's slowly cooking its occupants alive. The sun angles just enough to turn your seat into a frying pan. You squint up at the vast canvas awning velarium that sometimes shields the audience. But today, the wind isn't cooperating, and the slaves working the ropes can't quite get it to stretch fully. Around you, people begin fussing with food. Cloaks come off. Togs are loosened. Someone fans themselves with what looks like a flattened amphora label. A woman offers her child a piece of honeyed fig, and he promptly drops it on your sandal. But you don't care. Not really. Because something is about to happen. A new wave of excitement surges through the crowd, and from your perch you spot the soldiers again, this time flanking the Porta Triumphalis more rigidly than before. A fanfare blasts out sharp and polished. The trumpeters are clearly awake now, and then the moment everyone's been whispering about for weeks finally arrives. The emperor stands. That alone is enough to cause a collective silence. Imagine if a god stood up in church and started stretching. He waves once languidly as though addressing a pet peacock, then turns to his left and gestures. From the shadows of the arch, a man steps forward. Not just any man. You know who he is the moment you see him, even from this distance. He's bigger than life. Not tall necessarily, but dense like he was carved from an angry olive tree. Bronze helmet tucked under one arm. Scar down his cheek. Sword hanging casually at his hip like it belongs there more than a hand ever could. This is the day's star, Gladiator. The Colosseum erupts in a thunderous cheer. You don't even hear his name at first, it's lost in the chorus of Varus. Varus repeated over and over until it becomes something tribal. That's him. You've seen his likeness scratched into tavern walls, etched on cups, even scribbled onto tiles near the forum. His win record is legendary. The kind of fighter who doesn't just survive, he turns the whole spectacle into theater. The kind who steps into the sand like it's a stage. And now he raises one hand to the crowd. Modestly, of course. With that practiced humility that somehow makes people love him even more. He's not alone. A second fighter emerges his opponent. Taller, leaner helmet on already. Less known, though, someone behind you shouts his name like they've been betting on him all season. Maybe they have. This is what Rome does, turns death into sport and sport into celebrity. The herald announces the match. A Murmillo that's Varus against a Hoplomachus, a fighter who mimics a Greek spearman. Long lance, round shield, high-crested helmet, elegant but deadly. This won't be a fast match. They salute. Not just the emperor, but the audience too. And then, without further ceremony, the gates shut behind them. You lean in. The first few seconds are slow, calculated. Varus stalks the edge, watching, testing. His opponent swings the spear twice, shallow arcs meant to gauge reach. Varus blocks with his heavy shield, but doesn't counter. Not yet. Mainstream fact: elite gladiators didn't just fight for survival, they fought for style. There were unwritten rules, honor codes, rhythms to follow. Crowds wanted drama. Cowards were booed. Killers, too efficient, distrusted. But the showmen, the ones who bled just enough and roared at the right moment, those were worshipped. The Hoplomachus advances. Thrust, feint, circle. You can hear the spear flicking the air. Then Varus moves. He lunges in, not for a kill, but to slam shield against shield. It's a brutal chest-crunching sound, and it sends his opponent staggering. The crowd goes wild. The Hoplomachus recovers, twisting left, then backpedaling. Varus follows. Not fast, but relentless. Each step calculated. No wasted energy. Like a lion that already knows the deer is going to trip eventually. Fringe tidbit. Some gladiators developed personal moves, signature flourishes that fans could identify. Rumor has it, Varus ends every fight with a certain sword twist. You watch for it now, wondering if it's coming soon. It doesn't. Instead, Varus pauses. He lets his opponent swing twice more. Blocks once, sidesteps once. Then comes inside the reach zone and hooks the man's leg with his boot. The Hoplomachus falls. Not clean. He rolls, scrambles up again, but his stance is off. Varus wastes no time. He presses forward, shield-bashing sword raised, and suddenly he stops. The tip of his sword is inches from the man's throat. One good thrust would do it. The arena holds its breath. Even the animals behind the gates seem to still. Varus looks up, not at the emperor, but the crowd, and they erupt. Again. Mita, leave, let him go. The emperor doesn't bother signaling. He just waves lazily and sits back down. Varus nods, steps away. The fight is over. But the legend grows. Your seatmate is clapping like a madman. Someone nearby wipes tears from their eyes. A small boy whispers, "He's like Mars." And honestly, that's not far off. You watch as Varus exits through the gate, barely winded, still carrying that helmet like it's just a prop. He doesn't raise his sword, doesn't bow. He knows. He already owns the crowd. The Hoplomachus is helped out by 2 assistants. He'll fight again another day, assuming nothing inside's been punctured. You hope not. He moved well. Maybe he'll be a star too if he lives long enough. The arena quiets for a moment. The crowd exhales together. And you realize something strange. You feel proud. Not for yourself, but for him. A man you don't know fighting for reasons that are, let's be honest, more about spectacle than justice. But still you felt it. The tension, the skill, the strange dignity inside a place built for death. Historians still argue whether these top gladiators ever truly gained freedom or if the fame kept them trapped in the cycle longer. Some say the crowd's love was addictive. Others believe the games became a gilded cage, one sword stroke away from ruin at all times. You don't know. But as the crowd rises again, stretching, yawning, gossiping, you know one thing for sure. You just witnessed something unforgettable. And there's still so much day left. The sun is now hovering high, casting sharp shadows on the rim of the arena, like the teeth of some ancient beast. You lean back against the cool stone wall behind you, trying to steal a sliver of shade, but the heat doesn't care. Sweat clings to your skin. The wool lining of your tunic itches, and your sandals feel like they're melting onto your feet. Welcome to noon in the Colosseum. Around you, the crowd shifts into what could only be described as a collective midday lull. People groan, fan themselves with scraps of parchment, or stretch out on their seats like sun-drenched lizards. The noble tiers are already retreating under the shade of awnings and parasols. A senator's slave carries in a tray of dates and chilled wine, and you swear the man 2 seats over momentarily weeps. You check your own provisions. A mostly warm loaf of olive bread, 2 nearly liquefied figs, and a wineskin that now tastes like regret. Still, when in Rome. This is the lunch break, but don't let the name fool you. This isn't an intermission, it's just a different kind of show. Down below, slaves move across the sand, clearing debris and preparing the next scene. It looks like more props are being set: large, fake trees, a boulder or two, even what might be a stylized ship's mast. It's like watching a very confused theater company setting up backstage. Except here, the actors don't usually get to walk off stage alive. Then the trumpets sound again, not the glorious blast of a grand battle, but a kind of whimsical, playful tune. If sound could smirk, this would be it. That's your cue, it's execution hour. And yes, the Romans somehow managed to turn that into lunch entertainment. From one of the side gates, several condemned men are led into the arena. Unlike the criminals from earlier, these aren't being given a thematic death like Prometheus. These are for laughs. Well, Roman laughs. They're dressed in absurd costumes, tunics dyed with garish stripes, clownish masks, floppy sandals. One man has been made up like Hercules, complete with a lion pelt that you're fairly sure used to be a rug. Another appears to be Daedalus with wings made of wax-coated twigs, already melting in the sun. His face says he knows how this ends. The crowd chuckles. You can't help but raise an eyebrow. These aren't executions, they're skits, at least on the surface. But as the fake Hercules is shoved toward a lion cage and the gates slowly creak open, the laughter dips. Some turn away. Others squint, morbid curiosity getting the better of them. A girl in the front row giggles, then stops abruptly when the lion makes its first sound. A low, thunderous growl that rumbles like the arena itself is clearing its throat. What follows isn't a fight. It's spectacle by humiliation. The actors flail, run, plead. The crowd hurls bread crusts and jeers while the beasts, sometimes confused, sometimes cruel, chase and claw and end it quickly. Or not. One man fakes a comedic death, dramatic fall arm flung over his eyes only to rise again and run when a leopard gets too close. You laugh before you can stop yourself. It's absurd. It's wrong. It's Roman. And weirdly, it's popular. Mainstream historical fact executions at midday were considered part of the entertainment, not a distraction from it. They were carefully scripted, often themed around popular myths or famous traders, and were as much about maintaining social order as putting on a good show. Fringe tidbit. Some historians believe certain condemned prisoners were bribed into performing their deaths, well in exchange for a swifter execution or the promise of a proper burial. Theater, even at the end, was currency. One prisoner actually dances. You can't believe your eyes, he's dodging spears, ducking under a swinging trap, and performing some bizarre jig that has half the crowd clapping along. He's smiling, or maybe grimacing. Hard to tell from this far. But when a spear finally catches him clean through the chest, he collapses like a marionette cut from its strings. The crowd applauds. It's like a curtain call. You shake your head, not in judgment, just in disbelief. Somewhere deep inside, a quiet question lingers. When did pain become performance? But that's the thing here. In the Colosseum, everything is performance. You glance up toward the Emperor's box. He's reclining again, a goblet in one hand, his other idly stroking a small dog perched in his lap. The dog is asleep. The Emperor looks bored. For him, this is routine. Another Tuesday in paradise. You, however, are still rattled. A little nauseated, honestly. Not because of the gore, it's PG-13 by modern standards. More because of how normal it all feels. No one screams in protest. No one leaves. No one even seems surprised. Lunch ends with a final skit. A man in a jester's hat attempts to juggle knives. Poorly. The last knife he drops lands in his foot. The crowd roars with laughter. He doesn't. And just like that, the trumpets shift tune again, brisk, martial, serious. The break is over. The crowd rustles like waking birds. Cushions are adjusted. Cloaks resettled. Goblets drained. You chew the last of your olive bread and try to reset your brain. This afternoon will be the real blood sport. The undercards are done. The warm-ups. The animal acts and morality plays. What's coming next? Duel after duel. Flesh on bronze. Speed versus strength. Revenge stories. Grudge matches. Champions. Trainees. Fighters desperate to prove themselves. Others desperate to survive. And somewhere in the chaos, one or two will make history. Or at least graffiti. You breathe in deeply. Dust. Wine. Blood. Roasted almonds. The sand is smooth again. The crowd's leaning in. You hear the drums, steady, ominous, rising like a heartbeat. The real games are about to resume, and you are not leaving your seat. There's a certain tension in the arena now, not the kind that makes people whisper, but the kind that makes them shut up entirely. You feel it, like static in the sand, like your stomach's tied in a lazy knot. The lunch chaos is over, the wine's mostly gone, and the air tastes sharper. The light has shifted, less golden now, more bronze, like the sun is hanging lower and harder. It cuts shadows across the arena in lines that almost look like scars. The crowd goes still again. You know the rhythm now. Trumpets scream. Two fighters enter the arena flanked by handlers who retreat quickly once the gate closes behind them. You recognize one of the men instantly, not by name, but by his walk. He's limping. Not dramatically. Not enough to make the crowd gasp. Just a slight drag of his left foot as he circles in. You remember someone gossiping about this saw him training late, favoring that leg. People argued whether he should even be allowed to fight. Guess that decision's been made. Across from him, a hulking secular face hidden beneath a smooth, curved helmet with the tiniest eye holes you've ever seen. He's built like someone who probably gets stuck in doorways. Sword, shield bigger than your torso. No visible emotion, just movement, just menace. This is one of those fights where you know who's favored, but you also know anything can happen. The match begins. It's fast, faster than you expected. The limping man, probably a Thracian judging by the curved Sika sword and tall greaves, is compensating with speed. He darts. He lunges. He throws himself into the opening attacks like someone who's made peace with dying but wouldn't mind winning instead. The Secutor is slower, methodical. He blocks, absorbs, waits. His whole style says, "Go ahead, waste your breath," and the crowd eating it up. You hear the tension in their voices, the rise and fall of communal gasps. The Thracian scores the first hit, a scratch, across the Secutor's thigh. It won't end the fight, but it draws blood, and that's huge. The crowd roars, and you're suddenly shouting, too mouth-moving before your brain catches up. He's good. He's better than he looks. And then, he stumbles. It's the leg, the one you were watching. You see it give just slightly when he spins. Not enough to fall, but enough to slow. The secutor sees it too. You don't need to see his face to feel that shift in energy. Now comes the hammer. The secutor slams forward like a collapsing wall. Shield up, sword poised. 1, 2, 3 hits in rapid succession. The Thracian blocks the first 2 barely, but the third sends his blade spinning across the sand. He's disarmed. The whole Colosseum exhales. He stumbles backward, arms up, nothing in his hands but air and hope. The secutor stalks forward, no hurry. This is the part the crowd lives for. The dance is over. Now comes the decision. And what a decision. The Thracian drops to his knees. Not in surrender, more like defiance. Arms spread wide, head tilted up. He's not begging. He's challenging. You feel a chill. It's not silent, but it's close. Everyone's watching the Emperor. This again. The gesture. The fate. The whole audience caught in a moment that says more about Rome than 1,000 scrolls ever could. Will it be life? Will it be death? Historians still argue how the gestures worked. Thumbs up, down, sideways. We don't know. We just know it was often performative. The Emperor watched the crowd. The crowd watched the Emperor. Power mirrored back and forth until someone's lungs stopped working. Today, the Emperor raises his hand and closes his fist. You see it. So does the secutor. There is no mercy. What follows isn't slow. It's practiced. Quick. The kind of kill that says this isn't personal, just policy. The secutor drives his sword into the man's chest with an efficiency that silences half the arena. The other half applauds. And you're somewhere in between. Not cheering, not crying, just watching. Because that's what you are, a spectator. Slaves rush in. They lift the body onto a wooden stretcher, feet dragging slightly in the sand. A boy follows with a bucket of dark sawdust and scatters it over the blood. Another match. Another name scratched into a wall, or forgotten entirely. There's no intermission. 2 new fighters emerge before the sand has even settled. One's short, broad, and stomping like he lost a bet. The other's tall, thin, and twitching nervously, like he knows he's not supposed to be here. They meet in the middle salute and begin. This one's different, more erratic, less graceful. You can tell one of them is still green, barely trained. Probably pulled from the barracks this morning and handed a helmet that doesn't fit. The crowd gets meaner for these. They yell insults, shout directions, treat it like a chaotic video game. But something strange happens. The underdog, he holds his own. Blocks just in time, strikes with weird angles. The big guy gets frustrated, starts swinging too wide, and you find yourself rooting for the awkward one, the rookie with no sense of rhythm but an unnatural gift for panic. Then he gets lucky. A hit. A solid one. The crowd explodes. People jump to their feet. A child nearby drops his fig in shock. You laugh out loud, and the woman next to you says, "Never seen that before." Neither have you. But here's the thing. Glory is addicting. The underdog suddenly gets cocky, raises his sword, shouts something unintelligible. The moment goes to his head. The big guy recovers and lands a brutal hit that knocks the rookie flat. Silence. Groans. Someone throws an olive pit. The fight ends moments later with a mercy gesture from the Emperor, either out of pity or boredom, you're not sure. The underdog is carried off breathing. That's more than some get. Fringe tidbit, some trainers intentionally mismatched rookies against bruisers to toughen them up. Others say it was a form of hazing. Either way, survival meant they might get a real chance later, if they didn't die of infection first. The day's rhythm is fully underway now. Fight, applause, clean the sand, repeat. And you haven't blinked in minutes. You don't even realize you're gripping your knees until your knuckles ache. There's something hypnotic about it now, this relentless tide of combat. One bout ends, and before the dust even settles, another pair is announced. You've stopped keeping count. The line between individual matches has blurred into a continuous loop of dust, sweat, roars, and rising sun. And now things shift again. Trumpets cry out, but with a different rhythm, sharper, quicker, almost playful. From the left gate, a man in light armor carrying a net in one hand and a trident in the other. Another retiarius. Your second of the day, but this one enters with a flourish, twirling the net, theatrically tossing it from hand to hand, like a circus performer showing off. From the right gate, a secutor, his dome helmet, gleaming shield, raised sword, held at a diagonal angle like he's posing for a mosaic. He moves with the easy rhythm of someone who's done this too many times to count. The crowd perks up. This isn't going to be a slow clash. It's a classic Roman favorite, light versus heavy, finesse versus force. And already, the retiarius is putting on a show. He feints left, dances right, and twirls his net above his head and lets it snap down just inches from the secutor's boot. The crowd bursts into laughter and cheers. He's baiting him, teasing him. And for a few moments, even you forget that this might end in someone's spleen leaking out. But the secutor doesn't bite. He stands his ground shield up, helmet forward. He moves like a tortoise with a short temper, calm but deliberate. The retiarius circles looking for an opening, lunges with the trident clang blocked by the shield. He backsteps, then spins and throws the net again. It catches, just barely wraps around the secutor's sword hand. The crowd howls. You jump to your feet, but he doesn't panic. The secutor twists, yanks hard, and the net goes slack, sliding off. The crowd groans. Someone behind you throws a date pit at the sand. This is the game, distance versus pressure. The retiarius needs space. The secutor wants to close it. It's a deadly waltz, and every misstep could be the end. Mainstream historical fact, the retiarius was considered one of the lowest-ranked types of gladiator, not because of skill, but because he fought nearly naked. Romans loved bravery, but they also loved armor, and going out there in a loincloth and fishnet sleeves was seen as undignified. But this guy, he doesn't care. He's showboating, grinning, taunting. He drops the net completely, now tosses it toward the edge of the arena and gestures mockingly like, "Don't need it." The crowd eats it up, fringe tidbit. There were fan clubs specifically for retiarii. Despite their social ranking, some of them developed cult followings, mostly among women and theatergoers. Rumor has it they sometimes wore perfume into battle, for luck or just for flair. The secutor charges, now sick of the dance. Sword slashes, misses. Shield bash connects. The retiarius hits the ground hard, back scraping across the sand. His trident tumbles from his grasp and skitters out of reach. His opponent pounces, sword raised. But he's not done. In a blur, the retiarius rolls to the side, grabs a fistful of sand, and hurls it into the secutor's eye slots. It's a dirty move. You gasp. The crowd does too, part shocked, part impressed. The secutor stumbles, swinging wildly, blinded just enough. The retiarius grabs his trident, lunges, and lands a jab into the secutor's thigh. It's not lethal, but it's deep. Blood spurts. The secutor drops to one knee, and now the retiarius stands over him, panting, triumphant. This is the turn. The moment when all tension narrows into a single breath, 50,000 people collectively trying to decide what this man has earned. The secutor raises a hand, a plie salute. You watch, as the retiarius looks up to the emperor's boxed chest, heaving skin glistening with sweat. The crowd begins to chant. It's not unified. Half are yelling Jugula kill, the other half Mitte mercy. The emperor stays still, waiting, letting the noise reach a fever pitch. You've seen this before already, but somehow it doesn't get easier. This time the crowd sways toward mercy. Maybe it's the blood. Maybe it's the flare. Maybe they just like the sand in the eyes trick. The emperor lifts one hand, thumb raised sideways, unclear, but the retiarius gets the message. He steps back. The secutor collapses onto his shield as two slaves rush out with a stretcher. The retiarius waves once curtly, then walks off without another look. Just like that, it's over. No celebration, no ceremony, just exit stage left. You slump back into your seat, still buzzing. Around you, voices explode into arguments. Some people cheer the cleverness, others grumble about honor. A real warrior wouldn't throw dirt, one man says bitterly. A real warrior wouldn't have lost the woman beside him, snaps back. And somewhere in the stands, a vendor calls out, fresh figs, still cleaner than the fighters, you laugh. Because that was insane. Historians still argue whether matches like this were predetermined, if fighters were told how far to push it, or if the emperor whispered the results in advance. Maybe. Maybe not. But you know one thing, that guy just danced with death and lived. And you saw all of it. As the arena is cleaned once again, blood raked into new patterns, sand smoothed over footprints, you sit back, take a slow drink from your wineskin, and feel the story settle into your bones. But the next act is already waiting. You barely finish swallowing your last bite of half-squished fig before the drums strike again, low, rhythmic, deliberate. Not a trumpet this time, but something more primal. A heartbeat rolled in thunder. The crowd stills mid-conversation. Children hush without being told. Even the vendors pause. Something's coming. And then the gate opens. But it's not fighters who step out. It's handlers, 10 of them. All armed with long poles, rope coils, and that wary, slow-moving posture people take when they're about to do something incredibly stupid for the entertainment of others. And behind them, the beasts. You sit up straighter. The crowd leans in as one. There's a surge of noise, but it's not cheers. It's that electric chatter, that edge-of-your-seat confusion and excitement. The kind of sound humans make when they know they're about to witness something they'll never forget, whether they want to or not. Because here come the lions. 2 at first. Huge male, thick-maned. They walk low to the ground, tails, twitching eyes, scanning the audience as though they're not sure who signed off on this arrangement. Then a third, leaner, twitchier female, her muscles visible even through the dust cloud she kicks up. And behind them, an ostrich. Why, who knows? Maybe it wandered in. Maybe it's part of the act. Maybe someone lost a bet. Then the crowd gasps. From the shadows, lumbering comes something altogether different, a rhinoceros. You blink. It's real. A massive armor-plated hunk of ancient muscle, snorting ears, twitching, dragging a half-dead tree trunk from its pen like it brought its own prop. Its skin is gray, cracked, and glistening with the heat. Its horn is blunt, not quite a weapon anymore, either worn down from age or dulled for safety, though you're not sure whose safety we're talking about. This is not a normal venatio. This is animal chaos. The handlers spread out, forming a loose line with their poles and nets, trying to create an invisible fence. One man already has a gash on his thigh, bleeding into the sand. The lions sniff the air. The ostrich bolts in a wide circle, flapping its stubby wings like a drunken ballerina. And the rhino, it just stands there, snorting, staring directly into the crowd. You suddenly realize there's no hunter, no venator, no hero with a spear and a cheeky grin. Just animals. This is one of those rare moments when the arena turns into a raw showcase of the Empire's power. Look what we've conquered, it seems to say. And now look what we've unleashed. Mainstream historical fact. Rome's games didn't just celebrate death, they celebrated dominion. Showing off exotic animals wasn't just spectacle, it was a political message. Lions from Africa, bears from Gaul, elephants from India, even the occasional hippo. If it breathed, Rome could cage it or kill it. One lion growls and charges not at a handler, but at the rhinoceros. The crowd gasps as the rhino lifts its head and actually steps forward. It's not fast, but it's like watching a moving fortress. The lion swipes, misjudges, stumbles back. The ostrich panics again, trying to flap through a gate that's definitely not open. Handlers rush in, waving firebrands and nets. The lion retreats, ears flattened. The rhino just stands there unbothered. You're pretty sure it's winning even without playing. Then a door creaks open on the opposite side of the arena. Out walks a pair of boars. You'd laugh if they weren't massive and snorting like pigs possessed. One has tusks that curl upward like angry punctuation. And now the arena's officially a farmyard of nightmares. The audience is losing its mind. People shout bets at random. A man behind you insists the boars will kill the lion. Someone else offers him a skin of wine if that actually happens. Children scream gleefully. One noblewoman faints, or pretends to. And you just stare. Because it's not fighting, it's not war, it's chaos. The animals circle, the lions clash briefly with a boar which bites back. The rhino paces, the ostrich still flapping finally crashes into a prop tree and just sits down, clearly done with the whole concept of performance. Historians still argue whether these beast stampede segments were intentional or the result of poor planning. Some say they were tests to see how animals interacted. Others say they were punishment for unpopular criminals thrown in unarmed amid the beasts. Today it seems more like a flex. We can summon a zoo on command. Eventually, the handlers manage to corral most of them. The lions are lured back with meat. The rhino follows a scent trail behind a gate, possibly thinking it leads to another tree. The ostrich. It has to be dragged out sideways, legs kicking like it's auditioning for a mime act. And the crowd loves it, because this isn't just blood. It's unpredictability. It's the Romans playing God with nature and laughing when the system glitches. Fringe tidbit. Some emperors, especially the more flamboyant ones, had rare animals painted in ridiculous colors before releasing them. Purple elephants. Gilded deer. There are even whispers of a green-painted crocodile named Titus. You don't know if it's true, but it feels Roman. As the beasts are cleared out and the arena reset again, you stretch your legs and try to reset your brain. That wasn't combat. That was spectacle distilled into its most chaotic form. And yet in all the madness, something stirred, something darker. Because what comes next is not just for show, it's the executions, but not like before. Not the midday jokes, not the play-acting prisoners tossed into lion jaws for punchlines. No. Now come the ones the crowd wants dead. The traitors, the rebels, the ones people remember. Their crimes shouted by the herald with venom, their faces known to anyone who reads the Acta Diurna Rome's daily bulletins. One by one, they're brought out, chained, barefoot, eyes wild. Some shout curses. Others stare blankly at the stands. And here's the twist, they're armed. Lightly, a dagger, a small sword, sometimes just a stick. But they've been given the illusion of a chance. Why? Because now the trained killers come in. Not gladiators, execution specialists. These aren't men with names and chants. They're professionals. Silent, efficient, brought in to clean up the city's garbage publicly. And that somehow is what this crowd came for. You shift in your seat. The crowd around you leans forward. The games are about to get personal. The mood has changed again. No more laughter, no more wild animal chaos. No fruit being thrown, no fig-smeared children pretending to sword fight in the aisles. Now it's all narrowed, tightened, like the air itself has decided to hold its breath. The arena is quiet, not silent, but quiet in that bone-deep way when everyone understands that this next part is serious. You lean forward. From the Porta Libitonensis, the so-called Gate of Death, a line of figures is led into the open sand. They walk in chains. Most stumble. A few have to be dragged. Some mutter to themselves, others are unnervingly still. Their bare feet kick up little puffs of dust, and it sticks to their skin where sweat or blood already stains it. These are the condemned, not petty thieves or punchline players from the lunch show. These are the real ones, insurrectionists, traitors, foreign spies. At least that's what the herald is shouting from the platform above, voice echoing over the hushed crowd. You catch fragments, conspired to poison a provincial governor, stole sacred artifacts from the Temple of Mars, led a rebellion in Germania, and the crowd. They don't boo, they don't cheer, they judge. Because this part of the day isn't about entertainment, it's about justice. Well, Roman justice, which is kind of like entertainment, but with a self-righteous beard. From the opposite gate, the executioners emerge, not in flashy armor, no crested helmets or theatrical salutes. These men wear black leather tunics, plain helmets, short blades. A few carry small shields or cudgels, but they move like wolves, purposeful, silent. They don't need flair, they just need results. Each condemned prisoner is handed a weapon. Barely more than a knife, really. The kind of blade you'd use to peel fruit, not fight for your life. You can tell by the way some of them grip it like they've never held steel before. Like they're hoping it's all a misunderstanding. It's not. The first pairing steps forward. A condemned man, tall-scarred, angry-looking, is matched with a shorter, stockier executioner. No introductions, no rules announced. Just a sudden nod from the emperor's box, and it begins. It's fast. The prisoner lunges wildly, and the executioner sidesteps like he's seen it 100 times. He slashes once, twice, and the prisoner crumples without fanfare. No screaming, just a grunt and silence. The crowd claps, politely. No roar, no chanting, just approval. Then the next pair steps in. And here's the twist: one prisoner fights back well. A woman. She's lean young, maybe 30, with cropped hair, and a face like she's memorized every exit from this place. She darts forward with speed that surprises her opponent. Her blade slashes his thigh. He stumbles, and now the crowd reacts. They're murmuring, leaning in. Maybe they don't want her to win, but they're curious. This is the appeal of this whole brutal segment, a flicker of unpredictability. Even when someone's fate is supposedly sealed. She presses again, pushing the executioner back toward the arena wall. It's not grace, it's desperation. But it works, for about 20 seconds. Then he recovers, kicks her hard in the stomach, and finishes the fight with a clean, practiced thrust. You don't look away? None of you do, because this isn't a slaughter, it's a ritual. The condemned aren't just dying, they're being displayed, their last moments archived in the collective Roman memory like lessons carved into marble. This is what happens, the games whisper. This is what disloyalty earns. Mainstream historical fact executions during the games were carefully scheduled between bouts, not just to break up the pace, but to remind everyone watching who was in charge. Politics and punishment blurred. One match might be spectacle, the next, a purge. You glance at the Emperor's box. He's watching, head tilted, stroking his chin, as though considering whether the last prisoner's form was acceptable. One of his aides whispers something. He nods. You imagine him making mental notes, more blood. Fewer screams. Adjust for crowd mood. Now 2 prisoners are released at once. A former soldier and a Gaulish chieftain, according to the herald. The executioners approach, but this time the prisoners back away. Not because they're afraid, but because they turn on each other. Wait. What? The crowd erupts in laughter and surprise. The 2 condemned start fighting each other blade to blade, awkwardly but ferociously. One manages a cut across the other's face, then a leg sweep. Sand flies. The executioners just step back amused. This is something the crowd likes. Self-execution. The condemned entertaining each other to delay the inevitable. And here's the chilling part: the winner gets to face a lesser opponent. Maybe even earns a proper burial. Maybe even pardon. Historians still argue whether pardons were actually handed out. Some records suggest a good show could result in clemency. Others say it was all just rumor dangling hope to make men fight harder. Rome was never shy about weaponizing hope. The Gaul wins. He stands chest heaving, covered in blood, not all his. And then slowly he drops to his knees and offers his weapon to the nearest executioner. And this time the crowd cheers. The executioner nods, kills him cleanly. The emperor raises his goblet. Maybe he was pardoned. Maybe the clean death was the pardon. Either way, you won't forget the look on his face. It's not triumph, it's peace. They keep coming. 10, 15 more pairs. Some fall fast, some beg, some fight, some cry. One just walks forward, drops his blade, and kneels before the executioner without a word. The blade flashes, the body falls, and the crowd stands. A wave of applause. Not loud, not wild, but respectful. And you find yourself clapping too. Not for the death, but for the strange, awful dignity inside it. Because in this place, this vast, echoing monster of stone and dust dignity is rare. But when it shows up, you notice. As the final bodies are cleared and the arena is swept once again, you slump against the stone and exhale. You've seen games. You've seen chaos. But this was something else. Something Roman. The light has changed again. It's softer now, angled. Shadows stretch longer across the tiers, and the Colosseum's uppermost arches are kissed in a golden haze. The heat hasn't broken, not yet, but there's the faintest breeze sliding through the open air, carrying with it the mixed scent of sweat spices and old blood. You lean back, exhaling slowly. It's been hours. The crowd's energy has shifted, not weaker, just different. Less rowdy, more simmering. The kind of mood where people are too tired to cheer loud, but too spellbound to look away. The morning's giddiness has dried up in the sun. This is the long burn of the day now. And right on cue, the trumpet calls out again. It's not a fresh fanfare, not polished. This one's almost lazy, as if the trumpeter is slouching into the mouthpiece and just hoping his lungs hold up a little longer. You smile. It's lunch break, drama time. See, not everyone eats in peace. You glance down across the different tiers, across the social canyon that is the Roman class system in marble form. In the lowest seats, shaded by fine linen and tended by perfumed slaves, the senators are already reclined, chewing on figs and laughing softly into golden goblets. Their wives fan themselves with peacock-feathered fans. Their children, if present, sit like miniature statues, bored and overdressed. Up higher, the equestrians roam's second best. They snack from silver plates and argue over who's made the most successful wagers so far. One man's shouting that his cousin saw the retiarius twist his ankle, but nobody listened. Classic. And up higher still, your level the plebs are elbowing each other over shared loaves and leathery grapes, swatting flies and trying not to spill wine on their neighbors. You've seen 3 small fights break out over stolen crusts. One nearly turned into a full brawl over a boiled egg. You're chewing on what might be your 5th piece of olive bread when you hear it. A scuffle, louder than the others. And it's close. You turn just as 2 men a few seats away are standing red-faced, gesturing furiously. One has wine all down his tunic, the other's missing a sandal. You can't hear exactly what they're yelling, but from the way one keeps pointing toward the arena and miming a net throw, it's clearly about an earlier match. Then comes the push. Bread flies. A goblet spins through the air like a discus. A third man ducks just in time, only to get smacked in the head by someone's lunch basket. And now it's on. A full-blown mini-riot in the middle tiers. People stand up, some to fight, some to cheer, others to pretend they're not involved, while secretly placing bets on who'll lose the most teeth. Someone grabs a chicken leg and throws it. The chicken leg hits a senator's guard. The guard doesn't even flinch. He's seen worse. Slaves rush in to calm things down, but they're carrying trays of food, and half the wine spills on the stairs, making everything worse. It's a comic mess, food fists, feathers, and foul language. PG-13 swearing in Latin never sounded so musical. You scoot back half a row and sip your wine. From the Emperor's box, there's a single raised hand. And like flipping a switch, armed guards begin descending the stairs. Not slowly, not kindly. Rome doesn't do mild corrections. The guards shove through the crowd, grab 2 of the loudest offenders, and without a word, drag them away. One tries to argue, the other tries to punch back. Both get a wooden staff to the ribs for their trouble. And just like that, the tier quiets. Everyone goes back to eating, as if none of it happened. This is what passes for intermission in ancient Rome. A blend of snacks, insults, sudden violence, and an overcooked sense of civic pride. Because the games aren't just games, they're society rehearsals, a performance where everyone plays their part. Gladiator, emperor, peanut gallery, or wine-splattered idiot. Mainstream historical fact, the crowd was constantly policed. Guards were stationed throughout the Colosseum, and unruly behavior was met with swift discipline. In extreme cases, disorderly citizens could be tossed from the games permanently, or worse, into the arena itself for the next day's entertainment. The idea of audience participation was very real. You sit still for a moment, watching the final bits of drama settle. A slave wipes wine off a step with a handful of straw. A man 2 seats over is trying to bribe a fruit vendor with a broken ring. A woman nearby is still sobbing, though you can't tell if it's from laughter, rage, or heat stroke. And above it all, the emperor remains serene, unbothered. Fringe tidbit. Some emperors enjoyed planting agents in the crowd to stir trouble on purpose. Not out of sadism, but for social control. Let them fight each other, and they'll forget to fight you. You can't help but wonder how much of today's chaos was scripted. Suddenly drums thump again. 3 beats, sharp, familiar, you straighten up. The break is over. The crowd snaps to attention. Bread is pocketed, cups are drained, arguments paused. It's like a giant reset button has been hit. Slaves finish raking the arena floor. The sand's back to being a clean stage, though you still see the darker patches where things happened that rakes can't quite erase. A new match is announced. A rematch. Two fighters from earlier are returning, neither died. Both were granted mercy. And now they're being sent back in. This is personal. You lean forward, pulse rising again. Your head still buzzing from the lunch drama, the raw executions, the midday madness. And even though you're full of bread and wine and heat stroke, you're ready. Because the Colosseum isn't just about watching blood spill. It's about knowing that no matter what happens, whether you're a gladiator, a goat vendor, or a guy who started a fist fight over dried plums, you're all here playing the same game. Survival. The crowd's back in full focus now. No more idle snacking, no more half-drunken bickering over missed bets. Everyone's eyes are trained on the arena floor, which somehow seems more golden than ever beneath the lowering sun. Maybe it's the angle of the light. Or maybe it's the anticipation. Because this isn't just another fight. This is the rematch. You hear the name before you see the man, Alias. You remember him. The Murmillo from earlier. Big, scarred, stoic. He fought like a wall, immovable, relentless. You had almost forgotten, honestly, because that last bout was short, forgettable, ended without a clear victory. Both men had stumbled, exhausted, and looked up at the Emperor with the sort of resigned expression you imagine a deer gives before it gets painted onto a fresco. But here he is again. And he's walking back into the arena like it's his living room. His opponent follows moments later, Cassianus, a Thracian light on his feet, face still marked from the previous match. He's faster, trickier. He had drawn blood before Alias even raised his sword last time. But he hesitated, and now here they both are again. The crowd lives for this, because a rematch means unfinished business. The herald doesn't even bother with a long speech. Just their names shouted once, and the ring of a gong that echoes off the stone like a war cry. They don't hesitate. They collide. No circling, no measuring. Alias moves forward like a battering ram. Cassianus doesn't retreat. He spins jabs low with the curved Sika sword aiming under Alias's shield. A faint clang, he hits metal. Close, but no reward. Alias counters with a sweeping slash. Cassianus ducks sand, kicking up behind him as he rolls and springs to his feet. The crowd is howling now, and you're holding your breath. This fight has none of the theatrical pacing of earlier matches. It's frantic, brutal, real. Blades clash again and again. Cassianus goes for the knees. Alias steps aside, then stomps. Not on Cassianus, on his shadow. The arena roars. The audience sees it too. He's trying to pin the man psychologically, not just physically. Cassianus retreats, panting. His left arm is bleeding now, not badly, but enough to mark the sand. His chest heaves, eyes darting from Alias's sword to his shield back again. Alias just keeps walking. Not running, not lunging, walking. It's terrifying. You see now why the Murmillo style was favored by many, the weight, the armor, the sheer psychological pressure of someone advancing on you with the calmness of a debt collector. Mainstream historical fact, gladiators developed signature rhythms to their fights, not unlike dancers. They trained not only in combat, but in timing how to rise, fall, pause dramatically. Alias has mastered the art of making a fight look like an inevitable ending. But Cassianus, he's not done. He suddenly rushes forward low and reckless, driving his shoulder into Alias's stomach like a bull. The Murmillo stumbles backward, first time he's moved back all fight. Cassianus follows up, slashing left, right, feinting high, then scoring a hit across Alias's thigh. The crowd erupts. Even you yell something you don't quite understand. A fig flies from somewhere behind you. Someone near the Imperial box is banging a goblet on the rail. Fringe tidbit. Some fans would throw personal trinkets into the arena if a gladiator impressed them, rings, tokens, even love notes. There are accounts of fighters tripping on jewelry mid-match. Roman adoration was messy. Cassianus backs off now, grinning through the blood. But Aelius is already upright again. He doesn't roar, doesn't shout. He just charges, and the entire Colosseum stands. Shield up, sword raised, stomping like thunder. Cassianus tries to spin again, but Aelius cuts inside the movement. Not elegant, not clean, effective. The blow lands just above the waist. You hear the metal on flesh. Cassianus staggers. Blood pours down his hip, dark and immediate. He drops to one knee, and the crowd goes quiet, because now we wait. The gestures start again. Arms waving, chants rising. Half of the arena screams, Mitte mercy. The other half, Jugula, kill him. And Aelius, he waits. He looks up at the Emperor's box, not demanding, just waiting. You glance that way too, and for a moment, just a second, you see the Emperor actually smile. He gestures. You can't quite tell what it means, but Aelius nods and steps back. Mercy granted. Cassianus is helped off the sand, still alive, though probably unconscious, before he reaches the archway. Aelius turns, sheaths his blade, and walks toward the gate without raising his arms. No victory gesture, no drama. That's not his style. The crowd goes wild anyway. He doesn't need to celebrate. He's Aelius now, the Myrmillo who came back and won. You settle slowly back into your seat. Around you, bets are being paid. One man has to kiss another's foot. Another tries to hand over a chicken, but ends up chasing it across the stairs. The tension breaks, the laughter returns. But your eyes are still locked on the blood-stained patch of sand where Aelius last stood. Because you saw it happen. Not just a fight, a rise. The moment a regular fighter became something more. Not quite legend, but getting there. Historians still debate whether rematches like these were orchestrated for crowd appeal or genuinely born from indecision. Some say fighters could request them, others believe it was just another manipulation by the Emperor or the crowd or fate. You don't care. You just know it felt right. And the games, they're far from over. A new trumpet sounds, and something strange is about to enter the arena. Not a man, not a beast. Something other. The trumpet blares again, but this time it's not sharp or triumphant. It's lower, drawn out. A sound that settles into your chest, like a hum you can't quite place. You frown, glancing toward the gate. The arena hushes with you. It's not the usual fight buzz. No cheers, no laughter, just anticipation laced with something colder. Because everyone's heard the rumors, whispers in the markets, tavern stories, slave gossip, talk of the Emperor bringing in something new, something from the east, something that supposedly made an entire provincial audience run screaming from a smaller amphitheater. You lean forward. The gates creak open. At first, nothing. Then, the unmistakable thump of wooden wheels. A cart is pulled into view, drawn by 4 men in matching gray tunics. Their eyes are down, faces pale. Whatever's inside that cart, they want no part of it. The canvas is thick, tied tight, and something underneath it moves slowly with weight. You see the shape of chains. Then comes the second figure. A man barely armored, carrying only a curved dagger and a whip looped over his shoulder. His skin is tattooed, black bands wrapping his forearms, strange swirling symbols curling up one side of his face. You've never seen him before. He doesn't smile, doesn't bow. He simply steps into the center of the arena and raises one arm. The canvas drops, and the crowd gasps. You stare confused for a moment. It's not a lion, not a bear. It's humanoid, broad-shouldered, muscular, but chained at the neck and wrists, mouth covered with a thick iron plate. His eyes flicker with strange awareness. Not wild, not animal, but wrong. The herald doesn't shout his name. Instead, he declares this a trial of the possessed. "Excuse me," the crowd murmurs. You catch the words, "sorcery, curse, Mesopotamia." Someone behind you claims their uncle saw the same creature kill 4 priests without touching them. This is clearly nonsense, right? Except, why does your stomach feel like it's folding in on itself? The tattooed man begins circling the creature, muttering in a language you don't understand. Then, with one swift motion, he snaps the neck chain and steps back. The creature doesn't move. Not at first. Then its fingers twitch. And it charges. Straight at the tattooed man, who rolls to the side with unnatural speed. The creature skids claws at the sand with bare feet and turns fast, too fast. This isn't an animal fight. It's something closer to a nightmare. Mainstream historical fact: Rome imported creatures and people from the farthest corners of the empire for spectacle. Some were real, others exaggerated, and a few completely fabricated. There are accounts of wild men captured in strange lands paraded before audiences as living myths. Fringe tidbit. A 3rd century graffito found near the Ludus Magnus training school mentions a match where a man faced a demon and the demon wept. Most historians dismiss it as metaphor or street poetry. But here now, you're not sure. Because the creature moves like a man, but doesn't fight like one. He throws the tattooed man across the sand one-armed, and the crowd howls in disbelief. Not out of cruelty, out of sheer shock. The man gets up, limps, whip gone. He pulls the dagger. Too slow. The creature lunges. They clash in a swirl of sand and limbs. A sharp crack follows bone, probably. You're too high up to see which one it was. And then something stranger happens. The creature stops, drops to one knee, lowers its head. You feel the collective tilt of the crowd's confusion. Is it injured, submitting? The tattooed man steps forward, raises the dagger, and the creature grabs his throat, not wildly, purposefully. He lifts the man into the air like he weighs nothing. The crowd goes dead quiet. Then a snap. Clear. Horrifying. And the tattooed man crumples. The arena doesn't react immediately. It's too fast. Too impossible. You see the emperor sit forward, lips parted slightly. Even he didn't expect this. The creature looks up. Right at him. For one breathless second, you swear it smiles beneath the iron plate. Then it kneels again, submits. The guards don't move, no one does. Eventually, handlers rush in. Carefully, very, very carefully. Chains are reattached. The creature doesn't resist. It lets them lead it back to the cart, and just like that, it's gone. You hear murmurs. Was it real? Was it trained? Was it human? Historians still argue whether such events were staged, an elaborate hoax to awe the audience and impress visiting dignitaries. Some claim early emperors dabbled in theatrical occult rituals, importing mystics and cursed prisoners for special games. Others say Rome simply believed too strongly in spectacle to care about truth. You don't know what you just saw, but you know this: it wasn't a fight. It was a warning. Dressed in theater, laced with myth, and performed for the empire's heartbeat. The sand is raked again, but not well. Bloodstains refuse to blend. Even the slaves look rattled. The next match is delayed. You hear no music, just wind. And somewhere in the arena's depths, a chain clinks once more. There's a chill in the air now. Not real cold, but a shadow of it. Something that brushes the back of your neck and makes your tunic feel suddenly thinner. The crowd is quieter too. No vendors shouting, no impromptu wrestling matches over bread. No playful bets echoing up the tiers. Everyone's still thinking about whatever that thing was. But the Colosseum doesn't pause for long. You hear the metallic rattle of iron gates again, the clatter of sandals on stone. A new group of gladiators is being led out, not for a fight just yet, but for inspection. They line up before the emperor, saluting with raised arms, weapons at their sides. They don't speak. They just stand still and sweating as the announcer rattles off names and records. You catch fragments. 15 matches, 10 victories, 3 disarms. Former legionary captured in Illyria, undefeated 6 straight kills. It's all theater now. This is the prelude to the real match. You glance back at the Emperor's box. He's whispering with his advisor. They glance down. Then the advisor leans over the edge of the marble railing and points. A few names are called. The chosen fighters step forward. The rest are dismissed back into the darkness under the arena. But one man doesn't move. He's older than the others, scarred, pale eyes, half-lidded like he's seen the world, and wasn't that impressed. He doesn't react to the call, doesn't flinch at the shout of his name, Tiburnus. A guard steps forward, nudges him with a spear butt. Nothing. Then slowly, Tiburnus lifts his head and walks forward. Not rushed, not delayed. Like he's just taking a stroll through someone else's dream. And the arena watches. He's not the strongest, not the fastest. But something about him is heavy. Not physically, spiritually. You feel it. And so does the man he's paired with, a fresh-faced Myrmeio, tall, armored, clearly proud of his polished greaves. You can practically smell the ambition on him from 10 rows up. They salute. The bell rings, and the Myrmillo charges. Tiburnus just turns, slightly sidesteps, and lets the man fly right past him. It's almost funny. The crowd laughs nervously. The Myrmillo recovers, swings his sword high. Tiburnus lifts his own blade, an old-fashioned spatha, longer than usual, less flashy, and blocks with one clean parry. Then steps back again, and again. He's not fighting. He's dancing, dodging, reading every motion like it was pre-written in the sand. The Myrmillo presses harder. He's clearly annoyed now. Nobody told him his opponent would be a ghost. His slashes become reckless, his stance wide. Tiburnus lunges, suddenly driving the flat of his blade across the Myrmillo's shin. The man yells, stumbles, the crowd gasps, and here's the moment. Tiburnus raises his blade. The Myrmillo's on one knee, shield up, sword down, waiting, and the Emperor, he gestures. But no one knows what it means. Because this isn't a usual gesture. No thumb, no palm. Just a flick of his hand, vague and unreadable. And here's the thing, Tiburnus doesn't look up. He doesn't need to. Instead, he does something that silences the entire Colosseum. He lowers his sword. Then with 2 fingers, he gently taps the Myrmillo's helmet twice and walks away. The Myrmillo is left kneeling, stunned. The crowd is silent. You feel the same thing ripple through everyone at once. What just happened? No kill. No mercy signal. Just a man who decided not to follow the script. Historians still argue what those 2 taps meant. A sign of dominance, of respect. Was Tiburnus refusing the Emperor's will, or was he obeying a higher one? What you do know is this: the Myrmillo will never forget that moment. Neither will you. Tiburnus disappears into the gate. Not rushed, not escorted, no fanfare. But something has changed. You can feel it, because the crowd isn't cheering anymore. They're murmuring, whispering, and now everyone's watching the Emperor. You can tell he's not pleased. His jaw shifts. His wine cup is untouched. He leans forward slightly, fingers drumming the marble armrest, and then he lifts his hand again. Another match is called. This time a different style. Something bloodier, something clearer. A retiarius against a Dimacharius, a rare fighter who uses two swords, one in each hand. The crowd perks up. They know this will be flashy, messy. The fighters enter. The netman is slim, smiling, whipcord, fast. The dual sword fighter looks like he could bend an ox in half and then criticize its posture. No salutes this time. They leap into combat immediately. Steel against steel, net-twirling blades spinning. It's a blur. The retiarius is quick launching jabs with the trident and tangling the net with expert flair. But the Dimacharius, he moves like two men in one-body blades, slashing from opposite sides in perfect rhythm. You can't keep your eyes on one place for long. The fight takes them across the entire arena. They knock over a prop rock. A trident goes flying. The net gets sliced in half, and then contact. The Dimacharius scores a cut across the retiarius's back. The man yells, turns, lunges, and slips. A clean trip. Pure accident. He crashes hard into the sand, and before he can roll, the twin swords cross over his chest. Frozen. The crowd waits. The retiarius lifts one hand, bloodied, and this time the emperor doesn't hesitate. Thumb down, clear, unmistakable. The crowd roars. The Dimacharius raises both swords and delivers a single perfect stroke. Clean, final, no drama, no taps. The sand drinks again, and now the message is clear. Whatever that moment with Tiburnus was, it won't happen twice today. Mercy, if it exists, is on a tight leash. The crowd cheers wildly again, as if trying to shake off the spell. People shout, chant, stomp their feet. The Colosseum breathes deep, and you sit very still. Because you understand something now. This place runs on will. The crowds, the fighters, the emperors. And when those wills conflict, someone dies. The roar of the last match still lingers in the air, echoing up the tiers and bouncing off the ancient stone like a ghost that refuses to leave. You can feel it vibrating in your ribs. The crowd is flushed now, visibly drunk on victory blood, and the dangerous thrill of knowing their cheers can end a life. And now, with barely a breath between deaths, the announcer steps forward again. But this time, his tone shifts. It's lighter, almost smug. He waves his arm dramatically toward the noble seats, and the crowd responds not with shouts or jeers, but an excited hush like children being told there's a secret behind the curtain. You glance around, and then you see it. Across the arena in the Manianum Primum, the elite section, several women have stood up. You blink, not just to stand, to descend. They're walking down a special ramp accompanied by guards. Not slaves, not mistresses dragged into some cruel punishment. They're gladiators. The announcer declares them as gladiatresses, female fighters. Rare but real. And the arena reacts instantly. Whistles, gasps, shocked laughter, but also a kind of fascination. The Romans love novelty, and this is something they can't stop watching. Two women enter the arena. One is tall, broad-shouldered, with her hair braided and tied beneath a crested helmet. Her armor is silver-edged and gleams like it was polished by someone who very much feared her opinion. She carries a sword in one hand, a short curved shield in the other. The other woman is smaller, faster-looking, with twin daggers and a lean frame. No helmet, just a wrapped band across her forehead, dark curls escaping like snakes. She's already pacing, already calculating. You can feel the tension in the crowd, not because of disbelief, but because everyone's realizing exactly how seriously these women are taking this. There's no mockery here. They salute the emperor, not demurely, not playfully. They raise their blades and offer the same vow as any man who steps into this ring, morituri te salutant. And the fight begins. At first it's tentative. careful. The two circle each other, eyes locked. You can see the shorter one twitch her left wrist, adjusting grip. The taller one narrows her stance, slightly shield up. Then bam, a dagger flashes out. Blocked. Countered. Now they're in it. The smaller fighter dances forward, slices left, draws blood. It's shallow, but it earns a ripple from the crowd. The taller one doesn't flinch. She swings with her shield, forcing the other woman back into the sunlight, making her squint. That's the thing about this place. There's always a trick, a shadow, a patch of slippery sand, a gust of wind. And these two, they know every inch of it. Mainstream historical fact, female gladiators were rare but recorded. Inscriptions and graffiti reference them. Even the historian Cassius Dio mentioned a spectacle featuring women fighting at night, by torchlight, not without excitement. Fringe tidbit. One obscure theory claims a few of these gladiatresses were actually noblewomen who paid to fight anonymously for thrill status or rebellion. Whether it's true or not, the idea that someone traded pearls for a gladius makes the crowd sit straighter. The fight continues. The tall woman lands a hit, a hard one. The smaller one stumbles, blood now running from her arm. She spins, regains footing, and throws one of her daggers not as a killing blow, but as a feint. It lodges harmlessly in the shield. But the distraction works. She lunges low, sweeps the taller woman's legs, and brings her crashing down in a puff of dust and metal. The arena erupts. It's a full-throated scream, disbelief and awe tangled together. You hear coins hit the floor. Someone 2 rows down shouts, "I knew she'd win," as if he's been claiming it all day. The smaller fighter stands over her opponent, panting, knife still in hand. And now comes the moment. Kill or not. She doesn't look to the emperor. She looks to the crowd, and they don't know what to do. Because she's done something few ever manage in the Colosseum, she's stopped the narrative. For a moment, she has total control. The audience doesn't want her to kill, but they don't want her to spare either. They want something else. They want to watch her choose. And you watch too, breath caught somewhere behind your ribs. She lowers the blade, then offers a hand to her opponent. The taller woman takes it. They both stand, bloody, bruised, triumphant, and the crowd explodes with thunderous approval. Not for violence, not for mercy, but for defiance. Historians still argue about the legitimacy of these matches. Were they real fights or controlled exhibitions? Some sources suggest that female gladiators were eventually banned, not for moral reasons, but because they undermined the masculine illusion of Roman supremacy. Today, these women just redefined the rules. The emperor claps. Slowly, but with a grin. He seems amused, entertained, maybe even impressed. They are led off stage, heads high. And all around you, people whisper their names, even if they don't know them. Because legend doesn't always need full introductions. You settle back on your stone seat, stunned and still grinning. The light is beginning to fade toward bronze. Somewhere in the upper tiers, someone is sketching one of the fighters in charcoal on a scrap of parchment. You wonder what their stories are, where they came from, why they stepped into the ring. But you already know the answer. Because Rome called. And when it does, you fight. The light is dipping lower now, sliding toward the amber hours of late afternoon, when the shadows stretch long across the arena floor, and everything glows like it's been painted in gold leaf. It's the most beautiful the Colosseum ever looks when the sun hangs just enough to catch the dust in the air, and for a few glorious moments, even the bloodstains shimmer. But beneath the shine, something deeper stirs. You feel it before you see it. A chill, not from wind or weather, but from whispers. The people around you lean closer not to fight or cheer or argue bets, but to speculate. And that means only one thing. It's time for the superstition segment. You've heard about this. Everyone in Rome has. There are certain gladiators fighters who, for reasons no one can quite explain, don't die. They're not always the biggest or the fastest. Sometimes they're downright mediocre, but they survive again and again against stronger, better opponents. Blades miss them by inches, arrows deflect, wild beasts cower, and the crowd begins to whisper the obvious, touched by the gods, or cursed. Today, one of them fights. They call him Dravus. You don't know where he's from. No one does. His name isn't Latin. He doesn't speak much. His helmet is always the same. No crest, no ornament, just a smooth bronze dome with vertical slits for eyes. Like a statue that walked into the arena and forgot to stop. But the rumors, oh, they're loud. One woman behind you says Dravus once killed a lion with his bare hands. Another says he's been stabbed 7 times in the heart and keeps coming back. A man to your left insists he saw Dravus once take a mace to the head and still win the match. No blood, no limp, just a shrug. Historians still argue whether these tales were myth or marketing stories exaggerated by arena promoters to draw crowds. But some records suggest a few fighters did become so legendary that even emperors hesitated to match them in real combat. Because what if they couldn't die? Wouldn't that make them dangerous? Dravus enters the arena without fanfare. No music, no trumpets, no announcer. He simply walks forward, sword in one hand, shield strapped to the other. The crowd goes oddly quiet as he passes. Not out of fear, but something like reverence. His opponent, a Nubian scissor fighter, tall, agile, covered in shining bronze, his arms ending in 2 short, curved blades shaped like open claws. He spins once for the crowd. He's here to perform. He's fast, flashy, lethal. The match begins, and Dravus just stands there. The scissor darts forward, slashes, high spins, feints, left slices, right. Dravus blocks once, and then does nothing. For 2 full minutes, the crowd starts to shift. Some laugh nervously, some boo, but no one looks away. The scissor attacks again, harder this time. He lands a hit, scraping Dravus's left side. The bronze dents, but Dravus doesn't flinch, doesn't even tilt. Then he moves, just once. He steps forward, 1 pace, and in that moment, you see the scissor hesitate. Just a fraction of a second, but it's there. That look fighters get when they realize they're not just fighting a man, but an idea. Dravus strikes. 1 blow, clean, not bloody, but the scissor drops, hard. You can't see where he was hit. No scream, no blood spray, just down. A silence falls. Dravus stands still. No celebration, no flourish, just waiting. The Emperor gives a half-hearted signal. Mercy. The scissor is carried off, groaning but alive. And Dravus, he turns and walks away. The crowd stares, then bursts into 1,000 different conversations. You catch phrases like, must be magic. He's not even breathing hard. His sword didn't even shine. That's bad luck. My cousin swears he's a larva, a ghost. And you just sit there, skin crawling a little under your tunic, because you can't explain it either. It didn't feel like a win. It felt like inevitability. Fringe tidbit. Some gladiators were rumored to carry charms sewn into their belts, bits of bone coins, even crocodile dung supposedly blessed by Egyptian priests. Others had curses etched into the inside of their helmets. Names of enemies, hexes against rival trainers, or pleas to gods long forgotten. You glance at the sand. It still holds Dravus's footprints. Perfect, deep, straight, no hesitation. And you realize you haven't blinked in several minutes. The trumpets don't play after he leaves. Instead, a single drum thuds once, almost like a heartbeat. The next match is announced, but no one cheers. It's hard to follow a ghost. Still, the show must go on. 2 new fighters enter. Standard styles. They salute. They begin. But the energy is different now. You can feel it in the crowd. People are watching, but not cheering. Like they're still seeing that empty helmet in their minds. Still wondering how a man could be so calm while surrounded by death. Or maybe wondering whether he's even a man at all. The fight ends. Someone wins. You forget who. Because your eyes are still on that patch of sand. The one with no blood. Just footprints. Still there. Still unbroken. You try to shake it off. That strange stillness Dravis left behind has clung to your skin like a chill even as the sun hangs lazily near the horizon, now drenching the upper tiers in rust-colored gold. The shadows stretch longer with every passing moment, crawling up the marble steps like silent spectators of their own. But the crowd is beginning to stir again. Slowly. The murmurs return. The tension starts to reheat. And now, for the first time all day, you do something you've been thinking about for hours. You stand up, carefully. Legs stiff. Back protesting. You stretch quietly, step sideways down the narrow stone ledge and begin winding your way down through the vomitorium. Not the messy kind you're picturing, but the actual name for the corridor exits under the seating tiers. A couple of guards eye you, but you hold your Tessera token up and nod like you know exactly what you're doing. And you do, because you're going where most people can't go. Behind the arena, it's not open to the public. But you've got a cousin who cleans the barracks and a friend who sharpens arena weapons. And you've slipped coins in the right palms more than once. You duck past a linen curtain, slip into the interior passage, and now the noise fades, instantly muffled, as if the Colosseum is a theater that just closed the stage curtain. Here the stone walls are narrower, damp. You smell oil sweat and something like rust that's never quite been cleaned out. This is the ludus, the backstage of blood, the gladiator quarters. It's dim. Lanterns burn low along the passage. You pass rows of benches, racks of practice weapons, wooden swords, blunt spears, sandbags for striking. A few men sit quietly in the shadows, heads bowed, arms bruised and wrapped. Their eyes track you, but no one speaks. They're not warming up. They're cooling down. A set of double doors leads into the prep chamber, and here it is, the heart of the beast. You see trainers, tough, gray-bearded men with leather straps and shouting voices. You see healers dabbing blood from cuts that will definitely scar. And you see fighters half-dressed, half-masked, half-alive, waiting for their cue. There are rows of beds, some occupied by men groaning softly into thin linen. Others lay silent. You see a small altar at the far end, smoke curling up from a sacrificial bowl, the smell of burnt rosemary and bone dust hanging thick. You stop. Because to your left, leaning against the wall shield resting beside him, is Varys, the crowd favorite Myrmillo from earlier. The man who refused to showboat, who walked off without raising his sword. Up close, he looks smaller somehow. Not physically, just human. His brow is furrowed, his chest rising slow and deep. He doesn't look at you, but he speaks. You're not supposed to be back here. You freeze. Then he turns his head slightly. But you're not the first. You smile, shrug. I wanted to see. He chuckles. And what do you see? You look around. Armor lined on hooks. A half-eaten loaf on a bench. A dog sleeping in the corner, wagging its tail in its dreams. One man praying silently in a language you don't recognize. Another sharpening his gladius eyes closed, just feeling the rhythm. "I see people," you say finally. Varus nods. "Good. You're ahead of most." He stands slowly, rolling his shoulder with a wince. Out there were gods, myths, men made of marble. He picks up his sword. "But in here we bleed like everyone else, just more often." He walks past you and disappears down a corridor. You don't follow. You move further back instead. And that's when you see them. The beasts, caged, a tiger pacing, a bull with red-painted horns, a black bear curled in the corner breathing slow, chest heaving, and behind a thick iron grate something that might be a crocodile or might be a trick of the light. The hypogem. The subchambers beneath the sand extends downward like a maze. Slaves scurry past, dragging meat, pushing carts, checking pulleys that lift gates and raise platforms into the arena above. You realize the floor you've been watching all day. It's hollow. The fights don't just happen on it. They rise from under it. Mainstream historical fact, the Colosseum had over 30 elevators operated by a system of pulleys and counterweights, capable of lifting animals, fighters, even entire sets. It was a miracle of ancient engineering and a stage built to surprise. Fringe tidbit. Some of the animal cages were rumored to have small slits just big enough for a snake's head. It was said that certain condemned men were made to fight with venomous snakes released at random from the sand beneath their feet. A hidden threat. A secret terror. You shiver. One of the handlers walks past, nods at you. "You're not supposed to be here." "Just looking," you reply. He grins. "Then don't look too close. The gods don't like witnesses." You take that as your cue. You slip back through the passageways, up the stairs, past a pair of half-drunken guards who wave you by without even registering your face, and soon you're back in the heat of the crowd. Everything feels louder now. The sun is dipping toward the rim of the Colosseum. The day's not over, but it's waning. And down on the arena floor, new fighters step out. But this time you see it differently. Not just spectacle, not just theater, but a machine with wheels, gears, sacrifices, and secrets. And beneath the sand, something always waits. You're still catching your breath. Even now, back in your stone seat among the murmuring crowd, with the arena stretching wide before you and the last golden edge of daylight melting behind the Colosseum's top arches, you feel like you've brought something back from below. The darkness of the hypogem clings to your thoughts. The smell, the sounds, the silence. But the crowd doesn't care about your existential spiral. They're buzzing again. Because now comes something almost as sacred to the Romans as violence merchandise. Yes, seriously. As the next match is announced, something light a warm-up while the evening shadows grow a parade of slaves and vendors pour into the outer corridors, carrying trays and baskets, scrolls and medallions. They're shouting, laughing, selling. Because for every drop of blood in this place, there's a man making a denarius off it. You glance around and realize half the crowd is already digging into their tunics and purses, eager to get their hands on the latest gladiator gear. A boy walks past you, balancing a stack of miniature bronze swords. Varus alias Tiburnus by, now before they die. Another man follows, hawking rings pressed with the helmet designs of today's most popular fighters. Kiss the ring of the undefeated. Good luck in love and debt, you laugh. You can't help it. The Colosseum isn't just a battlefield, it's a brand. Mainstream historical fact. Roman gladiators were merchandised like rock stars. They were featured in graffiti paintings, statues, and even oil lamps. Some had dedicated fan clubs, factions that followed them from match to match, painting their names on walls and chanting them in the streets. And for the right price, you could buy it all. The most popular item, terracotta tokens, small clay coins with a gladiator's image on one side and his name or record on the other. Some were worn like charms, others were used to bet. A few were just kept, like ancient baseball cards. A woman next to you, elderly, sharp-eyed, pulls out a wooden box from under her seat and flips it open like it's a holy relic. Inside are at least a dozen of these tokens. You spot Varus, Cassianus, even Dravis. She sees you looking. Rare one, she says, tapping a token with a chisel-faced man on it. 2 fights, 2 kills, then he vanished. No death announced, just gone. She clicks the lid shut and turns back to the arena. You blink. Because yeah, that's the other side of all this fandom obsession. The graffiti is everywhere, scratched into the Colosseum walls, the bathhouse tiles, the side of public urinals. Flamma the Fierce 5 wins 4, spared lover of Livia. Varus drinks wine like Mars and fights like Neptune. Tiburnus has my heart and my cousin's horse. And it's not all clean. Some of it is downright scandalous. Fringe tidbit archaeologists found an ancient love spell buried under the Gladiator barracks, etched onto lead and folded around a lock of hair. It begged the gods to make a specific fighter fall in love with the writer, or at least break his leg so he'd stay in Rome longer. You'd scoff, but honestly, after seeing the way that Retiarius smiled before tossing his net this morning, you kind of get it. Some fans write poems. Others paint their favorites on their shields. One man is passing around a cup, engraved with a tiny scene of 2 gladiators dueling, complete with tiny drops of bronze blood. A girl a few rows down is weeping, not out of fear, out of infatuation. She's holding a scroll she's clearly written herself. The name Alias is all over it in delicate script, like she's rehearsing a wedding vow that no one but the wind will ever hear. And here's the thing the gladiators know. They read the walls, they hear the cheers, they pass messages through guards. A fighter with a pretty face and decent footwork can get anything wine gold, fan gifts, private visits. You once heard of a noblewoman who bet her family villa on the life of her favorite fighter. He won, then dumped her. The crowd adored him even more after that. And why wouldn't they? In this world, death is constant, but fame is currency. Real, spendable, bed-shareable currency. It gives power, influence, even in some cases, freedom. Because the rarest prize of all in the arena isn't gold or applause. It's a rudis, a wooden sword handed by the emperor himself, symbolizing release. Retirement. A fighter who wins his rudis becomes a libertus, a freed man. Not just a survivor, but a man who beat the system. And do they disappear afterward? Some do. But others come back to train to manage fighters or even to commentate. Like ancient sports analysts with more scars and fewer teeth. One Rudis winner allegedly returned just to watch fights and throw olives at the bad ones. You kind of respect that. The match in the arena ends quickly. A nimble Hoplomachus disarms his opponent and holds the point of his spear to the man's throat. The emperor gives the mercy signal. The crowd claps distractedly. They're still talking about tokens. And you realize you want one. You stop a vendor, toss him a few sesterces, and buy a smooth clay coin stamped with Tiburnus, just in case he never comes back again. You hold it in your palm. It's warm. You don't know why that makes your pulse race a little. A new trumpet sounds, and the crowd straightens. Because merch is fun. Gossip is better. But nothing gets the blood moving like a fight everyone's been waiting for. The sun is low. The stakes are high. And the next name is already on someone's graffiti wall. The breeze picks up finally. It slips over the top of the Colosseum like a sigh, brushing your face, lifting the dust off the sand in swirling little ghosts. People around you seem to relax just slightly, sweat evaporating at last, cloaks fluttering, fig juice drying on children's hands. And for a moment, the great arena feels peaceful. But you know better. Because down in the lower tier beneath the awnings, among the wealthiest and most powerful, a mistake is happening. It starts small. A boy spills a cup of wine into a senator's lap. Not his fault, the vendor bumped him. The vendor blames the slave. The slave insists it was someone else. Voices rise, hands wave. Wine-soaked silk is lifted to the sun like evidence in a courtroom. And then someone, a merchant's son with too much ego and not enough muscle, calls a nobleman's wife arena trash. The slap that follows is swift, sharp, and somehow musical. And now it's chaos. Not in the arena, in the crowd. You hear the sound before you see it, like a flock of birds suddenly lifting off. Gasps, screams, chairs tipping, bread flung like weapons. Men shoving each other with the desperate confusion of people who aren't sure if this is a brawl or a misunderstanding that's gotten out of hand. Then someone throws a cup. It misses its target entirely and hits a Praetorian guard. Uh-oh. The guard doesn't even hesitate. He grabs the man who threw it, wrong man, of course, and slams him backward into the marble with a clatter that turns every head in the arena. Suddenly, the fight is everywhere. Upper tiers, people are on their feet trying to see what's happening. Mid-tier plebs are climbing onto the backs of benches to get a better view, tipping over snacks and old people alike. Down near the bottom, the elite are screaming, both outraged and thrilled. And you're right in the middle. A burly man in front of you tries to rush past, maybe toward the action, maybe away from it. His elbow connects with your ribs. Another man is trying to pull his wife down behind the seats, while simultaneously shouting for a bread seller to bring back his change. Then you hear it. A single, long, high whistle. The emperor stands, and the effect is instant. Praetorians pour into the crowd from all sides, storming up stairways, shoving past spectators, grabbing offenders by the tunic, and dragging them down to the arena floor like bundles of broken wood. One by one. Fast, efficient, Roman. Within 2 minutes, the fighting stops. Not because people don't want to fight, but because they're terrified of being next. 7 men are dragged into the arena. 3 are bleeding. 1 has no sandals. Another is shirtless for no reason you can explain. A final one is still chewing a date and somehow looks offended to be here. The emperor gestures, and the announcer steps forward. Disruption of imperial spectacle, he declares. Contempt for order. Disrespect for the blood of Rome. The crowd is silent. Then let the arena decide their fate. Now this is new. This isn't a scheduled match. These men aren't fighters. They're troublemakers. Ordinary citizens who let the heat, the wine, and their tempers get the better of them. And now they're the entertainment. The gates creak, and out walks a single retiarius, the net and trident fighter, flanked by 2 others. All lean, expressionless. Professionals. The crowd leans in, because this is the Roman ideal in action, order against chaos. Trained control versus foolish impulse. The gods versus the goat. The 7 offenders are tossed wooden swords. No armor, no shields. The retiarii wait. The crowd starts chanting. Not names, not styles, just begin. And they do. It's not a fight, it's a message. The retiarii don't toy with them. They punish. Net traps, a foot trip. Trident to the chest, not fatal, but enough to drop a man. Another gets smacked hard with the butt of a pole and rolls dazed. One of them tries to run. He doesn't make it far. This is not about blood. This is about order. Mainstream historical fact crowd disruptions in the Colosseum were rare, but when they happened, they were handled publicly and decisively. The emperor's authority had to be absolute, especially in the eyes of 50,000 citizens watching for weakness. Fringe tidbit. There's a record of one riot that started because a vendor ran out of garum fermented fish sauce. It escalated so quickly that 10 men were executed in the arena as a warning, and the vendor was promoted for revealing disloyalty. You can't take your eyes off it, not because it's thrilling, but because it's chilling. One of the punished men kneels, bleeding, not defiant, ashamed. The emperor gives no signal. The retiarius doesn't kill. Instead, he turns away. And the crowd, they don't cheer, they nod. Because justice has been served, or at least what Rome calls justice. The 7 are dragged back through the gates, alive, barely, and the sand is cleaned again. You lean back, heart still racing, and feel your skin crawl with the realization that anyone can end up down there. Not just the criminals, not just the traitors, but a man who threw a cup too hard in the wrong direction. Because the Colosseum doesn't just punish fighters, it punishes chaos. And in Rome, order is blood deep. The sky is purple now. Not the delicate pastel kind, but the rich, heavy kind, deep violet sinking into black with a burnished streak of orange still clinging stubbornly along the horizon like the last smear of war paint before night takes over. And down in the Colosseum, the fires have begun to glow. Oil lamps are lit along the edge of the arena, casting flickering shadows over the sand. Braziers burn in high alcoves, sending curls of smoke and light into the darkening air. The torches mounted on the upper tiers are just now catching fire, and a slave walks the circle with a long pole touching flame to wick like some solemn priest of spectacle. This is the twilight segment, and you've heard the stories. This is when the strangest matches happen. Not because the fighters are more skilled or the animals more dangerous, but because this is when Rome starts to blur the line between performance and prophecy. You're not just watching a fight now. You're watching a ritual. The crowd has changed too. Louder in some places, quieter in others. Drunker, definitely. The daytime heat has finally broken, replaced by a breeze that carries the scents of roasted nuts, spilled wine iron, and old sweat. More torches are passed around, now held by eager hands. Everything feels charged. And then the announcer steps forward again. He says only one word: Skyva. The name hangs in the air, and the crowd leans in. Because this isn't just a fighter. This is a myth in the making. You've heard about him. Everyone has. He's fought 9 times, never killed, never needed to. He wins every time, but not through brute force. He disarms, he humiliates, and most unsettling of all, he never speaks. Not a word. Not to the emperor, not to the crowd, not to the trainers. Some say he's mute. Others say he took a vow. A few whisper that his tongue was cut out by an old commander for speaking the truth in the wrong tent. No one knows. But the crowd loves him. He enters now, slow and graceful, wearing almost no armor. Just a thin leather vest, sandals, and a curved sword. No shield, no helmet. He doesn't need them. His opponent, a secular chosen from another school, brought in special for tonight. Taller, broader, full armor, round shield, heavy gladius. A beast of a man with arms like tree trunks and a reputation for ending fights in under 3 minutes. The crowd buzzes because they know what this is. This is a clash of styles. Strength versus skill. Tradition versus something else. The match begins without ceremony. No trumpet, no applause, just movement. The The Secutor charges first shield raised high, Gladius pulled back for a thrust. He roars a full-throated war cry that echoes off the arena stone. Sceva doesn't even flinch. He steps sideways barely just enough to let the blade pass his chest by the width of a fingernail. Then, with one smooth flick, he taps the back of the Secutor's helmet with the flat of his sword. Just a touch. But the crowd howls, because that wasn't a hit. That was an insult. The Secutor snarls, turns, and charges again, slashes left. Shield bash, jab to the thigh. Sceva slides, ducks, spins, taps the man's greave with his foot. Another insult, another roar from the crowd. And you're grinning now. Because you realize what this is. It's not a fight. It's a lesson. Mainstream historical fact, some gladiators trained so long and intensely that their entire body became a map of reflexes. They could read a movement before it started, sense balance from breath. Sceva is showing Rome what it means to master the body like a god controls wind. Fringe tidbit. One ancient Roman curse tablet found buried near a Colosseum gate lists the names of 5 fighters, 4 of whom died within a week. The 5th Sceva, next to his name, non-tangator, cannot be touched. Back in the arena, the Secutor is flagging now. His shoulders rise and fall with exhaustion. His armor, heavy in the heat of the torchlight, is betraying him. Sceva hasn't even broken a sweat. And then he stops. He plants his feet, raises his sword. The Secutor charges, one final time, and Sceva strikes. Not a kill, not even a wound. He knocks the gladius from the man's hand with a sound like snapping bone. The blade clatters across the arena. The Secutor stumbles forward, off balance, off guard, off everything. And Sceva just steps behind him, places one hand on the man's back, and pushes. The Secutor falls to his knees, not in pain, in defeat. The crowd loses its mind. People are standing, clapping, stomping, waving torches like it's Saturnalia. One man throws a gold ring into the arena. A woman lifts her child and yells, "That's how you win, Marcus." Learn something, and Sceva, he just bows, low, once, then walks out the way he came. The Secutor is helped to his feet, dazed but alive. And the announcer, he doesn't say a word. Because what could he add? Historians still argue whether Sceva's record was real or exaggerated. Some say he paid off opponents. Others suggest he was protected by powerful patrons who wanted to see something noble in the sand again. But the truth, you just saw it. And now the Colosseum is on fire, not literally, but emotionally. Everyone is shouting his name. Coins are flying. A merchant's tunic is ripped in the scramble to buy a commemorative token. A child near you is reenacting the match with a fig and a piece of string. You sit still, stunned. Because once again, the Colosseum has reminded you this isn't just a place for death. It's a place where legends are forged. In sweat. In silence. In a single touch of the blade. And under the torchlight, surrounded by 50,000 heartbeats, you whisper his name too, Sceva. You're no longer thinking in hours. Time has loosened its grip, unwound like a frayed cord, as the Colosseum drifts deeper into night. The torches now burn high and steady, turning the sand below into a shifting stage of gold and shadow. Voices echo longer, footsteps carry farther, and even laughter sounds different under flame. This is the final phase of the games, the part the superstitious call the thinning. Because once the sun is gone, Rome believes things change. You feel it too. The crowd has thinned slightly. Families with children, older senators, and half-asleep courtiers have drifted out through the arches. But those who remain, they're hunters. You see them clustered in groups, leaning forward with sharp eyes and whispering like gamblers at a temple dice game. These are the ones who came for the dark stuff, for the wild stories, the rare matchups, the unpredictable moments when myth and madness collide. And now the gates creak again. Out walks a team of 4, not fighters, condemned men. They wear simple tunics tied with cord. No armor, no weapons. Their hands are shackled in front, each man clutching a blunt club or dull blade. One of them is missing an eye. Another's hands shake so hard he drops his weapon immediately. The announcer gives a speech, not for drama, but for records. These are Nazi criminals, enemies of the state, prisoners from wars Rome barely remembers. Their crimes are read aloud: murder, arson, blasphemy, desertion. The crowd jeers and hisses. But then a second gate opens, and what emerges isn't a gladiator. It's a machine. Your stomach tightens as you see it. A tall wooden frame on wheels, shaped like a cross between a battering ram and a siege tower, but smaller, more ornate. Carved beams, gilded symbols, and suspended within the frame, a cage. No, not a cage, a lattice of bronze bars, just large enough to contain something. You can't see inside yet, but you hear it. A snarl. Low, throaty, wet. The condemned men freeze. One of them stumbles backward and almost falls. Another begins muttering a prayer, not in Latin, but something older, rougher. The crowd listens, because this is bestia time. The announcer raises both hands. Tonight, he shouts, we bring forth the creature sent by Neptune to punish hubris, found on the coasts of Mauritania, fed on salt and fire, feared by fishermen and priests alike. He pauses, then bellows, the sea dog of Hades. And with that, the cage opens. You lean forward, heart in your throat. What lumbers out is hard to describe. It's four-legged, yes, canine in shape, but too large. Its skin is black and leathery patches of scale shimmering along its back. Its head is elongated jaws, broad eyes glowing orange in the torchlight. Foam drips from its maw. It doesn't bark. It screams, a guttural gurgling sound that doesn't belong to this earth. The crowd erupts, not in laughter, not in joy, but in that chaotic blend of awe and fear that only Rome knows how to bottle. You hear someone whisper, that's not a dog. Another says they summoned that thing. One man faints. The creature charges, the condemned scatter, and suddenly the arena becomes a maze of terror. One man runs toward the wall, screaming for mercy. The creature leaps unnaturally high and drags him down in a flurry of limbs and dust. You don't see the kill. You hear it. The others try to band together. One swings a club, useless. Another throws sand in its face. A third just curls up on the ground, sobbing. And then the beast turns straight toward him. You think for a second the man's prayer might be answered. The creature stops, sniffs, then moves on. Historians still argue whether creatures like this ever existed, mutations, hybrids, misunderstood animals, exaggerated by torchlight and myth. Some believe they were crafted, deliberately bred, or altered for spectacle. Others say Rome simply made monsters out of anything that moved and didn't fit a category. Fringe tidbit: one unearthed arena skull has canine features but double rows of teeth. Some think it was filed that way. Others aren't so sure. The remaining condemned don't last long. Within minutes, 3 are down. The last one, he fights back. Really fights. Uses his chains to wrap around the creature's neck, pulls with everything he has. The crowd gasps. It stumbles. He climbs its back, and for a moment, just one, he rides it. Like a myth. Like a god. Then it bucks, twists, and hurls him across the sand like a broken idol. He doesn't get up. The beast pants, body heaving, foam flecking the sand. Then handlers appear, with spears, nets shouting. The creature snarls, bites one spear in half, but eventually is dragged back, limping, growling, still alive. The gate slams shut. The crowd exhales. You do too. Because that wasn't a match. It was a sacrifice. The arena is cleaned again, but the blood doesn't blend this time. It stays dark, sticky, shaped like something still moving. And the crowd, they begin to cheer. Not for glory, but for survival. Because it's night now. And in Rome, when darkness falls over the sand, nothing is off the table. The torches flicker lower now, some burning down to nubs, their pools of light growing smaller, tighter, like shrinking islands in an ocean of dark. The air has cooled considerably, and the crowd pulls cloaks closer, shifts on the hard stone benches, but no one leaves. Because the final acts of the night are always the strangest. And tonight, Rome has something truly experimental to offer. The announcer's voice rises once more, slightly hoarse but energized. He doesn't shout this time. He speaks slowly, measured. As the stars rise and the veil thins, we present not a duel, but a trial of fate. The crowd leans in. This isn't about warriors, not beasts, not criminals. It's about chance. You've heard of this event before, but never seen it live. Few have. Down below, slaves hurry into the arena, dragging out an enormous wheel like a cartwheel, taller than a man, inlaid with bronze and painted segments. Each wedge glints under the torches. On closer look, each wedge bears a symbol. Some are obvious, a sword, a skull, a laurel crown. Others, stranger, a scorpion, a question mark, a coiled snake, a door, and at the center, a slot where a blade now rests, pointing outward like a clock hand. The announcer gestures. 2 men are escorted into the arena. They're not criminals, not even gladiators. They're volunteers. That's the part that always gets you. These are men who walked up to the editor's podium this morning and offered themselves to the wheel. Why it varies. Desperation, debt, glory, or just plain madness. The crowd cheers them like brothers. You hear names chanted Lucius Marin, even though no one really knows them. That's the beauty of it. It doesn't matter who they were before. In a moment, they will be marked. The announcer raises a horn. This is the game of Fortuna, he declares. 1 wheel, 2 fates, they will each spin, and whatever they land on will be their trial. The men nod and approach. Lucius goes first, young, wiry, a long scar over his nose. He reaches up, grips the handle, and spins the wheel. It groans, clinks, slows, stops. The blade lands on the door. The crowd gasps. The announcer pauses, listening to a whispered message from the Emperor's box. Then he nods and announces, "Trial of the door, face what waits in the dark." A panel in the arena wall opens. A black tunnel, previously unnoticed, yawns open like a mouth. Lucius doesn't hesitate. He walks into the tunnel. Gone. No sound, no light, no scream, nothing. The panel closes behind him, and that's it. The crowd doesn't cheer. They sit in horrified silence. Some cross themselves, others whisper bets about what was inside. No one will know. Maybe not even Lucius. Now it's Marin's turn. He's older, barrel-chested eyes wide with that twitchy, "Why did I do this?" expression you've seen on every bad gambler in every form dice game. He spins. Faster. The wheel clatters. Spins. Slows. Lands on the laurel crown. A pause. Then the announcer, "Trial of the crown, prove your worth with nothing but your words." The crowd oohs. This is rare. Marin is handed a small scroll. He unrolls it, squints, and then clears his throat. He's supposed to recite something poetic, historic, maybe both. He starts strong, quoting Virgil's Aeneid, a section about fate and valor. His voice rises, and for a moment he commands the Colosseum like a stage. You feel yourself impressed, until he stumbles, fumbles the line, repeats a phrase wrong, says Minerva when it should be Juno. The crowd turns instantly, boos erupt, bread is thrown. One man nearby screams, "Your tongue should be fighting lions." The announcer doesn't wait. He nods, and a trap door opens beneath Marin's feet. Gone. Just like that. No fight. No second chance. The wheel of fate does not tolerate stuttering. Mainstream historical fact. Romans hosted chance-based events in the Colosseum, sometimes as spectacle, sometimes to fulfill public superstition. The Wheel of Fortune, not to be confused with the game show you're thinking of, was a real concept in Roman culture tied to the goddess Fortuna, who spun destiny at whim. Fringe tidbit: a scratched inscription near Gate 23 reads, "Mira vidit rota," the wheel showed wonders. No one knows who wrote it, or why. And now the wheel is removed, wheeled off like a god that's fed and full. The crowd remains unsettled. They came for blood. But what they got was mystery. You glance up at the stars, now visible between the arches, bright and cold and distant. And you understand why Rome worships chance as much as strength. Because even the strongest man can fall through a trap door if Fortuna blinks. The torches flicker again. More matches are coming. But none will be stranger than this. Because strength is admired, skill is celebrated. But uncertainty, that's what truly haunts. You barely move now. Not because you're tired, though your legs are stiff and your back aches from the stone seating, but because any sudden shift might break the spell the arena has woven over this night. The Colosseum breathes slower now, like a beast that's eaten well and begun to doze, though even in sleep its claws remain sharp. The crowd has shrunk again. What remains is the core, the fanatics, the faithful, the addicted. You among them. You've forgotten meals. You've forgotten time. You've forgotten that life exists outside these walls. Because now comes the last duel of the evening. Not the finale. That's something else entirely. But this is the duel of champions. The announcer steps forward, voice raw but proud. Tonight, two titans meet, both undefeated, both called by gods and crowds alike. He pauses, and then thunders Varus, Priscus. The reaction is instant. The entire Colosseum rises to its feet. Even the emperor leans forward, because these names are legendary. Gladiators who've each won their Rudies once already. Freed men. But unlike most who take their sword and disappear into wine-soaked retirement, these two chose to come back. Why, no one knows. Maybe they missed the roar. Maybe they missed the ritual. Or maybe the world outside the arena is dull in ways that nothing, not coin, not comfort, can satisfy. Tonight they fight not for freedom. They already have that. They fight for honor, for immortality. They step into the arena. Varus on the left, tall, solemn shield gleaming. He wears his old insignia, still the etching of a raven across his greave, a reminder of his first kill years ago. Priscus on the right, leaner but faster. His sword hand twitches with anticipation. His armor is dented in all the right places. A man who's survived without ever looking lucky. They lock eyes, and then they salute. Not to the crowd, to each other. A moment of pure warrior respect. Then it begins. No music, no signal, just motion. They clash. Steel strikes steel, shields slam. Feet dig furrows in the sand as each man tests, presses, withdraws. The crowd is utterly silent save for the occasional gasp when a near hit glints too close to a throat or thigh. You lean forward, heart hammering. This isn't just fighting. This is conversation in strikes and parries. Varus lunges, deflected. Priscus feints, low countered. They know each other's style too well. That's the trick. They've trained together, eaten together, fought beside each other before they ever stood opposite. You can almost hear the unsaid words, "I know where you'll move before you do. Then I'll move where you won't expect." We've done this dance before, brother. Not like this. Minutes pass. 10, 15. They are exhausted, but still sharp. The crowd begins to chant both names in unison, Varus, Priscus, not to divide, but to praise, to celebrate. Then it happens. A stumble. Varus steps too far to his left. Priscus sees the opening, drives his blade forward. But at the last second, Varus drops his shield and catches the blade on the crossbar of his gladius, locked, face to face, breathing like beasts. And then laughter. Real laughter. From both men. It echoes, and they step back. Weapons still ready. But they don't move. They just wait. Until the Emperor rises, the crowd holds its breath. Thumbs don't matter here. Because this isn't about life or death. This is about recognition. And the Emperor, he claps. Once, then again. The arena erupts. The announcer steps forward and declares, "Draw." You blink. That's rare, insanely rare. Two undefeated fighters, declared equals. No victor, no loser. Just honor shared. Mainstream historical fact, the only recorded match officially declared a draw in front of an emperor occurred during the reign of Titus between gladiators Varus and Priscus. The poet Martial described the event in vivid detail, noting that both men were awarded their freedom again and showered with gifts. Fringe tidbit. Some believe they choreographed the match, that it was an elaborate show. But others claim it was too perfect, too honest to have been scripted. After all, Rome loved drama, but it revered authenticity. The men are awarded identical prizes: gold crowns, palm branches, another rudis each, though they need not use them. They raise them high, shoulder to shoulder. The arena glows brighter somehow, not from torches, but from the sense that you've just witnessed something eternal. A match no one won because no one had to. The crowd begins to chant again. Not names, just one word: honor. It echoes under the stone into the night like thunder, too tired to fall. You sit back, exhale, and know this will be told and retold. Carved into walls, etched into scrolls, embellished over tavern wine and bathhouse whispers. But you were here. You saw it exactly as it happened. And it was glorious. The chant still hums through the air like a fading spell. Honor, 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 even as the crowd finally begins to settle. Not from boredom, not from fatigue, but from something much rarer in this place: fulfillment. You've seen blood. You've seen beasts. You've seen miracles and monstrosities. But a draw, a moment of shared glory between two champions who could have killed and chose instead to recognize each other, that hits differently. You don't talk. You don't need to. No one around you does either. For once, even the loudest hecklers have nothing to say. But Rome isn't done with you yet. Not even close. A low drumbeat starts. Not from the arena beneath it. You recognize the rhythm. It's not a call to arms, not a summoning for beasts. It's a ritual pulse, deep and deliberate. The kind of sound that tells you something is coming up, not out. The announcer appears again, now barely lit by the wavering flames. He raises a hand. Citizens of Rome. He says, voice soft, now reverent, what you are about to witness is not a battle. It is a reenactment, a reminder, a resurrection. Murmurs ripple across the seats. Because this is the final performance of the day. The historical reenactment part, myth part drama part state-sponsored reminder that Rome is glorious and always has been. Tonight's story, the fall of Carthage. Of course it is. You've heard it before, but never like this. The gates open, and the set begins to rise. Yes, an actual set. Lifted by the hidden elevators beneath the arena floor, a miniature Carthaginian cityscape rises from the sand wooden walls painted to resemble stone towers with tiny burning cauldrons, a gate carved with Phoenician symbols. Actors flood the space, dozens of them. Some dressed as Roman legionaries, others as Carthaginian defenders. They wield dull weapons, raise painted shields, and shout lines from scripts you recognize from old poems. And then they begin to fight. It's not real combat, no blood. It's more like opera-stylized violence, dramatic collapses, spears that land with theatrical sound. The crowd watches rapt, because this is propaganda disguised as art. Mainstream historical fact, the Colosseum often featured reenactments of famous Roman victories, especially during imperial festivals. These weren't just for entertainment. They reminded citizens of Rome's power and its enemies' foolishness. Tonight, Carthage is the fool. The Romans storm the walls. The Carthaginians fall one by one, dramatically, melodramatically, sometimes hilariously. A soldier leaps from a tower and rolls 3 times before dying. A noblewoman cradles a wooden child and screams at the heavens. And then comes the final act. Scipio Africanus, played by a surprisingly muscular actor with a jaw you suspect is definitely not historically accurate, enters with a flaming torch. He lifts it high and thrusts it at the gates. Fire erupts. Real fire. The gates burst into flame, oil-fed, climbing up ropes and catching the thatched towers with frightening speed. A collective gasp rises from the crowd. You're on your feet again. Because even though it's staged, even though it's acted, even though it's a lie, wearing truth's costume, it's spectacular. And just when you think that's the climax, the final platform rises. A lone actor bound in ropes, struggling atop a wooden effigy of a throne. The announcer bellows, "Hannibal." A few in the crowd boo, a few cheer. And then the Roman actor steps forward, holds out a dagger, speaks clearly. Your empire is ash. Your gods are gone. Your pride is all that remains. And the bound man, he laughs, loud, defiant. He spits toward the Romans' feet, and the crowd loves it. Because even in death, even in defeat, Rome allows its enemies to be worthy. It makes the victory sweeter. The Roman stabs. The man falls. The fire roars higher. And then the actors begin to bow one by one, raising their hands, catching tossed coins and bread bits with practiced grace. You exhale again. Not because you're relaxed, but because you've been holding your breath for half an hour. The fire is extinguished quickly. Slaves rush out with water buckets and blankets soaked in vinegar. The set is disassembled as fast as it appeared. Already men with shovels are smoothing the sand again, burying the past with every sweep. Fringe tidbit. A few senators once protested the historical liberties of these reenactments, complaining that they distorted real military records. They were promptly reminded that in Rome, perception is more powerful than parchment. And now the emperor rises again. The crowd hushes. He lifts one hand, and then lowers it. The games are nearly done, but not quite. There's one more match, not announced, not planned. Something secret, even sacred. The people around you whisper in the dark. They say tonight might feature a Lannista's duel, a rare event, where 2 gladiator trainers fight, usually over a grudge or wager too big to ignore. Or maybe it's the execution of a disgraced senator dressed in armor and forced to fight as a final humiliation. Or most whispered of all, it could be Dravis. Back for one more kill. No one knows. Not even the announcer who simply says, "Remain, witness, remember." You feel yourself settle into the stone. The firelight dances across your skin, and in the deepest part of the arena, a gate begins to open. The gate groans. Not like before, not the smooth, practiced lift of the usual wooden barriers, but a deeper, older sound. As if this door hasn't been used in years, maybe decades. As if something behind it has been waiting slowly, patiently, for its moment under the firelight. The crowd is still. So still you can hear the wind brushing across the top arches of the Colosseum. A cloak flutters. Somewhere a cup rolls under a bench with a lonely clink. And all around you, 1,000 people stop breathing at the same time. Then it happens. The figure steps out. Not running, not hesitating, just walking with the calm purpose of someone who knows exactly how this ends. It's Dravis. The helmet is unmistakable. Still the same blank bronze face. Still no crest, no flourish. Just that smoothed-over mask with the vertical slits no more expressive than a statue and far less forgiving. You hear someone behind you whisper, "He's back." Another says, "Didn't he already fight today? Someone else?" No, that was a shadow. This is the real one. You're not sure what they mean. You don't ask. Because down in the arena, Dravis stops and turns. Another gate opens. A second figure enters. But this one you don't recognize. Tall. Covered head to toe in blackened armor. No insignia. No glint. A blank shield, a curved sword, and a single red line painted down the middle of his helmet, like a wound that never healed. He doesn't speak. He doesn't salute. He just steps forward. Dravis raises his sword, one hand, no shield. They stand across from each other, maybe 15 paces apart. No trumpet, no announcement. The crowd waits and waits, then they move. Not a clash, a slide. Both fighters circle each other, slow, deliberate, like predators, unsure if the other is prey. Then all at once, steel strikes. Hard. Fast. It's the cleanest, most terrifying sound you've ever heard, like someone cracking granite against bone. They disengage, circle again, strike again. You can't track it. The blades are too fast, the footwork too subtle. But you feel it. Every blow is loaded, not for the crowd, not for performance. This is personal. No one knows who the second fighter is, but every time their swords meet, something older than the Colosseum seems to vibrate beneath the sand. Some say Dravis has no equals, but tonight, he may have found one. Mainstream historical fact, there are no surviving records of a fighter named Dravis. But arena records are notoriously incomplete, especially for gladiators who belong to private lanista or imperial households. Anonymous champions existed. Some were deliberately kept out of records to maintain mystique. Fringe tidbit. One rare scroll fragment found in the ruins of a Roman villa near Capua mentions a nameless man in bronze who brought silence where crowds once roared. Some scholars believe it's a reference to Dravis. Others think it's just poetry. Down below, the fight intensifies. No flourishes, no tricks, just two titans grinding each other toward the edge. Dravis lands a hit shoulder. The black-armored man lands a hit rib. Neither flinches. The blood doesn't seem to matter. Then they lock. Swords crossed, helmets inches apart. You can't hear the words if there are any, but they stand there, blades pressed, breath hissing, immobile. Then Dravis tilts his head, just slightly, and lets go. He drops his sword, on purpose. The crowd gasps. The black-armored man steps back, lowers his blade, just a fraction, and in that moment Dravis strikes, with his bare hand, grabs the helmet, twists, rips it free, and the man behind the mask is Dravis. No, not identical, but close enough. Same jaw, same eyes, same scar across the brow. The crowd is frozen. You feel every hair on your arms rise like soldiers obeying a silent command. The second Dravis copy twin reflection, whatever he is, stumbles back, looks up, and smiles. The kind of smile that belongs to someone who knows they've already lost. Then he drops his weapon, kneels, and laughs. Not a cackle, something worse. A broken chuckle like a joke no one else gets. And Dravis the first, the original, steps forward, raises his hand, and places it gently on the other's shoulder. No blade, no blood, just contact. And the second figure crumbles, like dust, like ash, like something that was never quite real. Gone. Nothing left. Just an empty helmet. And silence. Utter silence. Then slowly Dravis walks back to the gate he entered through. Does not look up, does not raise his hand, does not bow. He just walks into the dark, and the gate closes. The announcer doesn't speak. The emperor doesn't rise. The crowd sits, stunned. And you realize you've just seen something the Colosseum can't explain. A fight that doesn't fit in the records. A warrior who just fought himself and won. Or maybe didn't. Historians still argue whether Dravis was a man, a myth, a ritualized name passed down through generations, or something else entirely. A symbol. A story the arena told itself over and over just to remember what it meant to be invincible. But tonight, you saw him, and you'll never forget it. Because this wasn't a fight. It was a mirror. And Rome always wins when it stares into itself. Word count 1, 299. Now, lean back. Let your muscles relax. Let the weight of the day, the sun, the roars, the stone, the strange things you witnessed drift off like dust scattered in the arena wind. Picture the Colosseum again, but empty now. The torches flicker low. The sand lies smooth, still warm from the fights, streaked with footprints that lead nowhere. Above, the stars press gently through the night sky, no longer competing with firelight or screams. The crowds are gone. The chants have faded into whispers, just you now. And the memory of a day lived inside the lion's mouth. You remember the scent of olive oil and blood, the sound of steel and silence, the shape of fear dressed in bronze. And still somehow the feeling isn't horror, it's awe. You watched empires play with fate like dice. You saw men rise, fall, vanish, burn, kneel, laugh. You even saw one face himself. And now you're safe again. Back in your own bed, your own room, centuries and worlds away. But somewhere in the soft hush of the evening breeze, you might still hear a trumpet, a door creaking open, the sand shifting, the crowd drawing a collective breath. And if you do, don't worry. You're not in danger. You're just remembering. Now close your eyes. Let your heartbeat settle into something slow and deep. You've survived the Colosseum, and you're stronger for it. Sleep well, friend. End of script. Sweet dreams.